so it's pretty hilarious.
Mhm. Awesome. How fun. Adventures. Okay, we're at the top of the hour, so we're going to get started. People are coming in as we're talking. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the January.
Go get the water.
Okay, and I'll
Okay.
do my thing at the beginning. I got some announcements to make. So, welcome everyone to the January 2025 Quantum Biologic Powwow. Happy New Year. Definitely. A lot of things have been happening, and I think we're all in that world together. But we have a lot of new members always every single month that are joining us. So I'm going to go ahead and follow some, go through some, housekeeping here. You guys submitted your questions to be asked or to speak live. Those were submitted and they're reviewed by Dr. Cruz prior to being approved or unapproved to be on the call. We have a list of those that did not make it in the approval list of the call. We'll address some of those at the end. If they do not get addressed, you will get an email from me of, a direction or why they weren't addressed on the call. We take the live callers first. We will take them in the order as received. If you are a European member and it is nighttime and you should be in bed, please message me. I'm Team Cruz Optimal Clubs in the chat. Let me know that you're European. We will get you moved up in the top of the list if you are here to speak live so that we can get you to bed. The questions that were submitted to be asked, same thing. They are submitted and asked in the order as received. We ask that you stay on mute during the call. I will message you when you are coming up if you're a live speaker in chats to try to pay attention to that too. And I will let you know that you're coming up and I'll ask you to unmute when it's your time so that you can speak with Dr. Cruz. We have a lot of members, a lot of new people joining us. Our list of questions are growing every single month and we have to try to respect everybody's time. So we are getting very, very, very strict on the questions that we are letting through. So please respect our decision if you do not make it on the list and your question is answered or addressed in a different manner. Additionally, please be very direct with your speaking with Dr. Cruz live. Be very direct with your questions. Respect that there are a lot of people on the list. We got to get through everybody. It's just the way it is right now. So we've got a lot of people joining us. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Cruz, see if he has anything to say. If not, we're going to get going. I'm going to check the chat for anybody here.
One question at a time. That's it.
Yes.
And then if we have time towards the end, then we'll come back and maybe open it up. But we got to cut through it. Cut the verbosity. Just ask the question.
Okay. Okay, let's see. We have Layla. She's in Lebanon and she is on the approved live list. So we're going to go ahead and ask her to unmute and we'll get started the call with her.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Hi, Christy. Hi, Dr. Cruz.
Hello.
Welcome.
I hope you are doing well. I'm very happy I found your work. I don't have light for now, so I did not turn my camera on because it's 11 p.m. I have been diagnosed 20 years ago with a mitochondrial disease that caused my muscle to atrophy. It's called FSHD. It's an epigenetic disease with a hypomethylation pattern. So I would like your opinion on that disease.
Yeah, since you're a new member, I mean, I've already addressed all the MTHFR mitochondrial diseases. They all respond to strong electric and magnetic fields. Therefore, inside the tropics, strong light is really beneficial. Where you live, unfortunately, there's probably not a lot of great places to go. The one place I can think of is the Mediterranean. Why? Because it's technically a caldera of a volcano. So that's probably the closest place I think that you could probably find good healing. But again, the
Where? I'm sorry, the
Mediterranean
Mediterranean, you mean?
Mediterranean Sea.
Yeah, in Lebanon, yeah, I can have access to that.
So, I mean, the problem is the Mediterranean Sea still gets pretty cold this time of the year. So, but that probably would be the best place for you to go. close to your
Mm.
house.
Yeah, so it's been 2 weeks. I read your book also, and I started tanning, and it's been doing well. Like I'm tanned now in like 2 weeks. I'm surprised of that. So do you think
I'm
this
not
is
surprised. I'm not surprised by that at all. You're Lebanese. I'm
uh,
surprised it took you 2 weeks. It should have only taken you one.
okay? Because in January I did not expect that. I've never been consistent in tanning until I read your work. It's amazing. So I can ask only one question.
Yeah, I mean, we want to limit it to one question. If you have multiple questions about your disease, that's something where you just have to sign up for a consult and talk about that.
Mm,
But we've got
only
so many.
yeah, only about the lenses. If because I have myopia, so I have lenses. So do you think I did not see any blog about that? I did not find it.
Lenses for what? What are you talking about? What are you referencing? Blue blockers?
No, I have lenses like instead of the glasses,
Oh,
so
you
just
have intraocular lenses.
myopia. Yeah, I have degrees in my eyes.
Yeah, but you mean you had surgery for
No,
your
no, I have glasses like to see. I have
glasses are fine.
glasses and
Your
lenses,
glasses, take your glasses off when you're out in the sun. That's all you have to do.
and the lenses are not accepted in the sun, so the UV light does not come through.
Yeah, let's take them off. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, like I mean, because I've heard Huberman talking about like the lenses, it's
Don't
okay to
listen.
have.
Don't listen to Uberman. Just stop.
Mm, so they should be removed. Okay.
Absolutely.
Mm, okay. Can I ask only one more question, not about me, about your opinion of a specific therapy?
All right, the last one.
Iridiology. What do you think about? Is this a good?
Not really.
Mm, not good to diagnose anything.
Nope. The only thing that's good to diagnose, it kind of tells you what the melanin situation is in your iris and probably behind it on the RPE and then on the retina. That's about it. Especially if there's color changes and things like that, which a lot of people do have. But that's not what that stuff's about. A lot of it's hocus pocus.
So it doesn't indicate tumors or anything else.
No.
Mm, okay. Thank you so much for your time and generosity.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.
Okay, next we have Kelly. Kelly, can you unmute your line? It's time for you to speak.
Hello, world-class traveler.
Hello.
My question today is about if you've heard of any developmental delays or developmental differences if a woman who was pregnant in 2021 in El Salvador received 2 vaccinations or COVID vaccines.
Yeah, we already know
And
that.
her,
I mean, that's a given. The spike protein has
okay,
conferred long-lasting effects from all the jabs. So the answer is it's possible. Doesn't mean that everybody gets it. It's not 100%, but is it plausible? Is it likely because of the spike protein and LMPs? Yes.
all right. The little boy is now 3 years old and his expressive language is severely delayed. Receptive language appears to be within normal limits, and they're in El Salvador. Any thoughts on where they could turn or where they
I
could
mean,
look?
the blogs are pretty crystal clear on this. You need to stay in the tropics to get rid of them, but we don't know the answer. No one knows the
Okay,
answer. I mean, this is
because the little
brand new.
guy was little
Brand
guy
new
was
stuff.
born
I
and
mean, we
raised in El
just don't
Salvador.
know.
Okay,
That
so it's
doesn't mean
possible.
anything.
And
If you got the LMPs and you got the spike protein, I don't give a shit if you live on the equator. The problem is you need to be there and your immune system needs to clear it over time. We don't know the answer of how quick it's going to clear. We just know that those are the things that do it. You need to turn your T regulator cells into natural killer cells to get rid of it. We know that a lot of the stuff that McCullough's talked about is horse shit. Doesn't really have any basis in science. And the reason that he posted it, he's trying to do something and make, some plausible case when that came out. I guess it was about a year and a half ago. But we now know a lot of more aftermarket data. And the bottom line is, as I said in the last Q&A, that this data is going to change over time as we learn more. We do not know the answer. So the key is, if you're jabbed, read the last 3 or 4 blogs really carefully. They're there. Don't ask me questions if you didn't read the blog, because I absolutely will be furious.
What I was saying, Jack, was the little guy lives in El Salvador. He was born in El Salvador. He was born to a Salvadoran mother who
Okay, so
received 2 jabs. And
you're assuming because you live in El Salvador, everything's okay. So if you've been a member any length of time, like I'm channeling right now, Matt and Peter have lived in places in El Salvador, and they'll tell you that the dirty electricity is off the chain. So let me give you another one. If Indy's
yeah,
on this call, she used to rent places from Maria Teresa. Maria Teresa's house is a fucking shithole. It's filled with dirty electricity. So just because you live in El Salvador doesn't
gotcha.
mean you live in El Salvador. Got it?
Makes
So those
sense. Thank
people in
you.
El Salvador need to actually test. Nobody tests, you don't know. But if you've got this problem, you got jabbed, yeah, I think you need to do that kind of testing because it's a big issue. 4 Q&As ago, we had our 2 Brazilian friends went through the same kind of bullshit. They found the same thing out about their place. It doesn't matter where you live. It matters where you live and where you test. Is it okay or not? And when you're jabbed, it's like, this is a quadruple big deal.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I will pass that on to her and see what she does with it.
All right, good luck.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay, let's see. Who do we have next? It is going to be Tiffany. Tiffany, can you go ahead and unmute? There you are. Welcome.
Yes. Hi, guys. Hi, Uncle Jack. Good to see you.
Hello.
Quick question about my vision. So as a little kid, about 5 years old, I had eye surgery because I had lazy eye to strengthen the muscle. Did it again. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I said, uh-huh.
Oh, yeah. Did it again as a teenager. Been in contact since basically a teenager. Have had a lot of little health issues over the years. And so obviously through your stuff, I'm learning now, take the contacts out, which I've started to. Sunrise, and I'm working outside a lot. Is there anything else you think I could do to improve the vision? Because it's really bad.
Yeah, I mean, you have to increase the dopamine and the melatonin. People keep forgetting that skeletal muscles in your eye, I should say your eye muscles, are skeletal muscles. So they absolutely work the same way. So how do you hypertrophy those muscles to get them to work better so that they do the things they do? You got to get them in strong UV, near infrared, and infrared A light. And if you've had this your whole life, you have to realize, I don't know how old you are, but just say you live 4
46.
decades. Yeah, you live 4 decades with
Yeah.
this shit and tarps on your eyes. And to be
Yeah.
honest with you, it's going to take a while, but this is the reason why I always tell people, if you go to the right environment, do the right things, make sure you test. I mean, you guys all saw when I first came back from, what was it? Antarctica. You saw me go straight, to the caldera in Coatepeca. Why? Because of the traveling. That's kind of what you want to do, and I would tell everybody the same thing. I just told the lady from Lebanon the exact same thing with her mitochondrial issue. The story here doesn't change. You have to have strong electric and magnetic fields consistently over time. Some places can do that at high latitudes. Most places they can't. You'll get one or the other, not both. Just like I'm not a big fan of the Mediterranean in terms of its strength, but for where she lives compared to Lebanon, yeah. But remember, Lebanon is a shithole because of all the damage that goes through with all the crap in the Middle East with Israel and everything else. All that stuff causes mitochondrial problems. All stress goes through the same pathway. Okay, light stress, psychological stress, stress from your boyfriend, stress from your girlfriend, stress from your nurse, stress from your kids. It's all the freaking same. And what does that do? that destroys POMC. It destroys alpha, beta, and gamma MSH. And if it destroys that, how the hell do you think you're going to maintain your dopamine and melatonin levels? It's that simple. And just
Yeah.
so you know, everything I just told you, that whole cascade in the blogs. And I don't mind recapitulating that for you guys. It's there. And I need you to know that the melanin renovation prescription, I've said this multiple times. People need to read that blog, in my opinion, every 3 months. In fact, I may even change my tune because I went over some of the questions for this Q&A with Chantel, and I think I said like 25 times, they got to read the blog. And the new people, I don't have a big issue with, but some of these questions were coming from old timers, and I'm like, I just don't get it. If you think you're going to learn Jack Cruz from tweets or small little, videos that people put out from podcasts, I'm just telling you, it ain't going to work.
Yeah. Okay. Would you recommend buying the light that your father-in-law used, or no? I'm in Florida, so I'm in the sun there, but is it
The
not
sun
much?
there, look, the sun there sucks. You guys just got 10 inches of snow when I was gone. I mean, my clinic in Louisiana just got 10 inches of snow.
Right.
So it's unusual what's happening this year, but if you've had this for 46 years,
Right.
I can make the case that yeah, you probably should consider something like that.
Okay.
But when the sun comes out, you need to be in the environment. And I'll even tell you when it's cold, sitting outside, there's a benefit. Even being in the shade, under a tree,
Yep.
you know,
Yeah.
under, an awning or something. There's still a benefit when your eyes are exposed because you're still getting all the colors of the
Right.
rainbow.
Okay. And that was the EMR tech light you did, right? Is
It
that
was the big one. It's 8 foot by 4 foot.
okay.
I don't know the name of it. I couldn't tell you.
Okay. All right. I'll see if I can find that. Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you. And tell Chantal I said hi.
Yeah, I don't know
Is she
where
right
she is.
there?
No, I think she left.
Oh, all
I
right.
think she went to go listen to it on her phone somewhere.
Okay. Oh, and the breed love. Oh my God. The best yet, by the way. And especially the second one, like all the stuff you were saying. So killer. Keep it up. It's
Okey
awesome.
doke.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Okay, we now have Michelle. Michelle, can you go ahead and mute your line, please?
Oh, hello.
Well,
Hi, thank you.
Hello. Hello.
Uh, Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ask your question.
Oh, sorry, I don't have a question right now. I just joined.
Oh, okay.
It's my first time here. So, I'll just listen for a little bit, and then if I have a question, I might jump back on if that's okay.
Christy.
I think that would be, is it my
Michelle.
question? Michelle?
wrong Michelle came on. Yes, Michelle, you were the one that I messaged in chat.
Okay,
Welcome.
Yeah. all right. Hold on, let me just get this. Hi, everybody. My question was about, Jack, in the blog Decentralized Medicine 29, you mentioned ivermectin protocol for the vax people and all that. So I was seeing also from Dr. Makis that for cancer patient, he does include fenbendazole.
Stop.
Yeah.
This question really pissed me off when I saw it, but I
Oh,
told
did
them
it?
we're going to answer it.
Okay,
There's
great.
a difference between prophylactic use for the jab and someone with cancer. Makis is for cancer. The blog was for prophylactic use. End of report.
Yeah, I
Okay.
saw that.
So if you want to use the other one as a physician, do informed consent with your patient. It has a high therapeutic index. I don't have a problem with it. But
No.
would I do it?
Yeah.
The answer is no, I would not do it.
So one of the reason I'm thinking about it, because I think you had shown somewhere the chart with SV40 and what happens like 15 years ago. Like people would get cancer maybe 30, 40 years after or 50 years after.
No, it
Now
lasted the
doctor-
spike. I put it at the end of the second Danny Jones podcast with me and Mary, the one that
Yeah, it
didn't
could be.
have Callie means in it. And I told people that look at the curve. The curve is 50 years long until it started dropping. The most important part for you to know the SV40 that was in the original polio jab was the full SV40 and the genome. This one is just the SV40. And if you looked at the tail, it was almost vertical. So guess what I think? I think actually the SV40 in the original polio jab was actually better than the one we have now. Why? Because I think this one is manufactured further. I think it's worse. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I think prophylactic use of the ivermectin is reasonable. But remember, this is an off-label use, meaning we have no clue. What
Yeah.
should you take home? Because you're a relatively new member. I'm
Yeah.
not going to assume you know this. If you know the story between Sarah Stewart and Mary Sherman, what did they find? They found nothing gets rid of the SV40.
Yeah, I
Nothing.
know that.
And when
So-
you're in radiation, which their patients weren't back then,
So now
Okay.
it's exponential with radiation.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Right. That's the reason why the line is spiked up.
Yeah, because what I'm seeing now, and I mean, only time will tell, but like now that bell curve with people getting explosive cancer is like 3 years instead of 30 years before. It might be
Well,
5
I
years or
I don't
something
think
like that.
I don't think it's 3 years. I think you're wrong about that. I think it's a couple of months.
Yeah. So then the prophylactic that basically would be enough with ivermectin. I mean, we're gonna see
We
it
don't
with
know. We
Yeah.
don't know. But right now, the only thing that I think makes sense because of all the studies in that blog is ivermectin alone. You want to add something else? Me personally, I don't have a problem with you doing that as a clinician, as long as you do informed consent. Do I think it's relatively safe because the therapeutic index, the safety profile, the LD50 is all good, but I don't see enough data yet for me to recommend that as a prophylactic yet.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Okay.
just remember what you learned in medical school, like I did. Any drug you give has side effects.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It just, I mean, we're going to know more probably in a few years, but just the explosive nature of everything and people showing up already stage 4 and all that. So, but yeah,
I don't think the drug's the answer. If you want to know the truth, if you took the jab, you
Yeah.
need to be inside the tropics. And the
Yeah,
last
sure.
3 blogs have made that case. And
Yeah.
you want to know the truth? I'm not really a fan of people relying on the drugs. And I know most of the people out there, 99%, that's what they want. They want the drive-through answer.
Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, that probably pissed you off too, then, like using vitamin D to try to raise the level a bit faster so that people
Well,
are in the
vitamin-
sun in the
vitamin D,
meantime.
I think vitamin D, to be honest with you, we're going to find out that that doesn't help down the
Okay.
road. And the reason why has to do with what I just wrote in the current blog. If you know when you take vitamin D, it raises your cholesterol. What else does it do? It changes all the proteins in your skin. What does it say in the current blog about that issue about changing the things in the skin? Now we know the skin has another immune system. And guess what? That immune system is probably the single most important thing about keeping this whole story at bay.
Yeah.
It's the real issue. And then when you add in, okay, I'm high latitude and I live in a within 75 miles of a 5G city. I mean, if you're jabbed and you don't understand what I've clearly said, then you just don't fucking get it. It's
Yeah.
as simple as that. And the thing is, my opinion, when you're on the deck of the Titanic, you have 2 choices: listen to the music or jump in the Cold War and stop fucking crying. Because remember, ultimately, you took the fucking jab. And I'm sorry if I don't have as much empathy as other doctors, but I have no time for stupid people. When you're trying to save a lot of people, tell them what they need to do, let them sit down with their doctors, let them do true informed consent, and then go from there. And then I think some of the questions that come up between the doctor and the patient, that to me is very interesting. That is going to be interesting down the road because every patient's N equals 1 is very, very different.
Yeah.
And I think when certain people do certain things, we may actually begin to see something in the ether come out and say, hey, these people are doing better than these people here. Maybe we need to start thinking about that. And I think when you go start throwing drugs that you have no fucking good data, it's
Yeah.
going to mask those effects. And then we're not going to know what that is. In my opinion, that's actually what happened with Fauci and HIV. He gave everybody AZT and he killed a lot of people. But some of those people were having responses to some of the things that were being done. And we lost about 10 years of that.
Yeah.
That we could have studied it. And to me, that's the reason why I'm only willing to go up to a certain amount, because we need to see the pulse in the people that took this to figure out what's the next best step.
Yeah. Okay. So then, yeah, the vitamin D could be harmful. And I mean, they also recommend vitamin A, which obviously I'm not gonna
That's
go there.
been more fucking psycho.
Yeah, yeah. So that's good. So I'll check your last blog to understand better about vitamin D because I was not sure about that. And is there anything else you can share at this point about the progression of medical act freedom or not yet?
Right now, it's kind of up to the Bukele administration. I mean, I can tell you what I'm doing now. I'm headed to the top of South America, go talk to Maya Parabu. She invited me and Chantal to come to institute it all. So that's the real reason for this trip.
Okay. So you'll be posting about it at some point?
Depends how the meetings go.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. Ciao.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, we have Stacy. Stacy, you're next to speak live. You can unmute your line, please.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hi. Good morning. My question is that my son, he has like chronic rhinitis, and when he gets in the cold weather, his skin gets really itchy. So I'm just wondering, is that like a histamine response?
You
And
just said it's allergic rhinitis. When it's
yeah,
cold, the sun sucks. That's why it happens. That means
right.
his immune system is not dialed up. The redox is bad.
Yeah.
That's what it tells you.
And that would be a matter of just getting him in the sun more.
Oh, and grounding. I mean, I would tell you some of the stuff that is even in the current blog actually gets to the crux of the matter. It's not just about light. You got to do the grounding as well. You need to do everything you possibly can to use that photoelectric effect maximally. Remember, how many times have I said to you the story about a coffee grinder or a coffee pot? If you have a coffee pot that's got two plugs and you stick it in versus the one that the grounding plug, which one is thermally more efficient? Which one makes the coffee faster? Which holds the heat the best? Turns out it's the one with the third plug. So if you just do the sun alone and you don't ground, that's the same story of having a coffee pot with two plugs versus three.
Okay. Yeah. And that's just like getting his feet on the ground morning, like
And making sure where he stands on the ground doesn't have electric power lines or gas pipes or anything else there. Again, what does it go back to? First thing we talked about with the lady from her friend from El Salvador. You must test where you're going to do this stuff. If you don't
Yeah.
test, you don't know.
Yeah. And is that like just getting a dirty electricity meter?
Or it could be a body voltage meter. There's a lot of different ways to do it. But, when I get asked a question like this from someone like you, I tell everybody the same thing. I don't want you to DIY this. It's too fucking important to screw it up. Hire a EMF biologist. That
Okay.
way, you know exactly where your kids should stand.
Yeah.
In fact, you know where your whole family should stand.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. That's it. The environment sucks. Yeah. Just gotta.
Well, most
No.
people have that problem now. That's the
Yeah.
truth. When you live in Australia, let's put it this way: the entire country is a desert. Everybody lives around the edges, right?
Yeah.
And where all the power grid is. Okay. And if you really look at Australia, it's also very similar to Canada, that 90% of the population is in 5 or 6 cities. So
Yeah.
if you're in and around those cities, you shouldn't even ask me this question. It's pretty
Yeah,
obvious what the problem
yeah.
is.
we're probably about 70 kilometers from Brisbane. So yeah, we're getting this app from that for sure. Yeah.
That means testing. When you live in a high impact area, it means that there's a lot more idiots around you. Testing becomes even more important. And I just got on the lady's case about the kid from El Salvador. And the reason why is, Matt and Peter, who, had problems back in the States. Peter's actually Canadian, but Matt really did. Matt actually tested some of the places that he stayed in El Salvador and found that there was an issue. And then, people, who were going down to Maria Teresa's place, it's nice that she was doing that for people, but she wouldn't mitigate the shit that was going on in her house. So what did people do? They said, fuck you, I'm leaving. And they stopped going there because just being in a good environment doesn't mean it's a good environment,
Yeah.
and people need to understand. I think so many people just think, okay, I'm at a good latitude, so I'm okay. No, you're not. It's the wrong
Yeah.
answer, especially when you got a mitochondrial problem.
Yeah.
And God
Yeah.
forbid, if you got a jab issue on top of all this, I mean,
No, fortunately not. Yeah.
test, Stacy.
Sorry.
Test.
Test. Yeah. Dr. Margaret put me in contact with a good building biologist, so I'll get in contact with him. And
That's all you gotta do. That's
yeah,
it.
cool. All
All
right.
right,
Thank
good
you for
luck.
thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, next we have Ollie, I believe is how you pronounce it. You can unmute your line, please. Hello, welcome.
Hello. Hello, check.
Hello.
We have met at Polish Health Summit in 2019. I was the guy with EMF meters and with coils of shielded cable explaining people how to mitigate non-native fields.
Okay.
And I'm flying to El Salvador tomorrow. I'm planning to stay for half a year.
Good. Sounds good.
And maybe
So now, if anybody comes to El Salvador, you bring in your gear with you.
yes, all 50,
All right. So
54 kilos.
put your information in the box and tell people what you're going to charge them to come check their stuff out. Perfect.
Yes.
So now if you come to El Salvador, the other lady that I just screamed at, this is the guy you need to talk to.
That's me. Yeah, I have experience.
I love the way Q&As work. This is perfect.
So I have done it 6 years, and this is my passion, to figure out ways how to still use technology, but in a most safe way. So if anyone needs to check their home environment or a property they want to move in, so just give me a call. Yes, I will leave my details.
And you only take Bitcoin, right?
Well, I would take Bitcoin as well, yes.
Oh, you didn't listen to what I said. You only take Bitcoin.
That's right. Noted.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. What's your question?
My question is about this E equals MC square. And well, if I imagine the wave, it's sort of like straight line movement. If I look at solids, is it that the light is circling around, like if electron captures sunlight?
I think the best way to look at it when you're dealing with the concept of E equals MC squared is actually the field. You want to know the truth? Quantum electrodynamic field theory is really more foundational than E equals MC squared. E equals MC squared, I think, is really good for building atomic bombs. Okay. That's really what it's good for because it gives you the proper, how shall I say, the amount of uranium-235 and plutonium that you need to do the mass conversion to see how strong the bomb's going to be. But when it comes to, say, what happens in chlorophyll or hemoglobin, I think quantum electrodynamic theory does a much better job of that. But unfortunately, that's where it gets really complicated, because you have to understand vectors, you have to understand vector calculus. You know, that's maybe when you even start learning about some of Richard Feynman's diagrams and where they came from. If you really want to be a tool, you can go buy one of Julian Schwinger's books and actually learn the mathematics behind that. My opinion, electromagnetic fields are extremely complex for living things. And I would say for the interaction of the solar wind with the anode planets, because they're very, very different. And we can see that difference in what the auroras look like on each planet. So like when you talk about how an electron gets excited by light, you know, the way in which you think about it is linear, but that's not the way it should be thought of. But it makes
Is it a spin that goes quicker, let's say, that it, you know, gets the more mass, or if it's excited?
Well, it's not. Well, you remember, light's not going to increase the mass of the electron because it's massless, but it's going to excite it. What's the key difference there? Probably momentum and charge. And if you think about it, momentum and charge for a classical description always throws people off. It really does. And then when you start adding in like orbital angular momentum, then people's heads just explode. But it turns out that all of these things are really important for the living state. And it turns out that cells seem to use all of these things in ways that we still yet can't fathom. And I think the best way for most of the lay public to understand this is give them simple concepts, tell them the complexity is great, and then make the story as simple as the Sphinx, meaning go see the sunrise, ground, turn all lights off after sunset. And really, that's Pareto's principle for E equals MC squared.
Okay.
I don't think you can get any more complicated than that. You do that, people already cry that my stuff is too complicated. It sounds like you want to talk about that other 20% in Pareto's principle. I just don't think when you're trying to educate the general public about that, that's where you want to go. That's actually where you want to sit down with a bunch of physicists and start talking about stuff like that. And you have to realize the physicists have their heads up the ass because they only focus in on high energy physics. They don't focus in on the low energy, which seems to be what life is really doing. And I think low energy physics is radically different than high energy stuff that they do at CERN. And how do we know that? Because with the electromagnetic force, as scale shrinks, it gets stronger. That's what makes it very interesting. And it also makes it very, very complex.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move to the next question then. I have seen some halogen bulbs that are meant to breed amphibians in a terrarium, turtles and snakes and so on. And they claim they have UVA and UVB in there. Maybe it's unfiltered quartz bulb. That's why it can provide these frequencies.
Yep.
If I power it with DC power supply, is it wise to use them in a house if there is no possibility to open a window?
You just asked me a 20% question. The answer is you already know that there's problems with those bulbs. Now, if somebody's asking, is this a way for me to get UVA and UVB light? The answer is yes, you're going to get it. But is it the best choice? I just got finished telling Tiffany, fake light never is and never will be equivalent to the sun. The sun is always the best answer. So that's the reason why I'm not a real big fan of, people saying, hey, I live in Edmonton. Can I use a Spurdy D light or, you know, a deuterium quartz light and a near infrared panel. I'm like, you can do whatever you want. But the question should be, should I do this? And if you're dealing with a disease, I don't think it's a good choice.
So it just, I should say to clients, then move to higher latitude.
I would just tell you, I think when you sit down with a client, it's easy for me to say that because I understand it. But remember, you have to build trust up with the client. So I think you need to actually explain to them what I just said to you in the audience. And then when they ask you, say, okay, if this was for your kids and this, what's the best? Then you tell them the truth. That's actually how you build your business, because the thing I can tell you, I just got finished doing a shitload of consults the last 4 or 5 days, and the underlying theme with each one, everybody wants the drive-through answer. Nobody wants the truth. And I have to be honest with you. This is going to be even a bigger deal with the people who are jabbed. People that are jabbed, they have no fat on the bone, no free degrees of freedom. They have to do it right. If they don't do it right, they're going to die and get sick sooner.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that's cut and dry.
Yeah, okay, got it. And my final question is, what is the status of the decentralized medical research center?
Well, that's kind of interesting. I would tell you, I probably have an update after Bobby gets thumbs up or thumbs down in America. But I can tell you right now, everything is in the dark period because we can't say or do anything. And during this period from, I'd say, mid-December to right now, they have completely iced out Nicole. Nicole is kind of out of the mix. But has Nicole met with different scientists that I've hooked her up with? Is she still committed to doing it? Is she very interested in this trip that I'm taking now? I mean, that's part of the reason that I'm going to Suriname. Why? Because I'm not letting the grass grow under my feet. If there's another place that's willing to, go, full bore, then we need to do it. Why? Because there's millions of people out there that need this help. And we can't wait for politicians to get their head out of their ass.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to participate in this project.
Yep.
So
Well, when we get new news, I'll let you know. But right now, I don't anticipate hearing anything until we find out what happens with Bobby and HHS.
okay, thank you. I will leave my details, contacts.
Okay, sounds good.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's see. We have Ryan. Ryan, can you unmute your line, please?
Hey, can you hear me?
We can.
Hey, Dr. Jack, how's it going?
Good.
First question I wanted to ask was,
Remember, there's one question, so make it a good one.
okay, you talk about the Federalist Papers a lot, and I was curious if you would consider yourself an anti-federalist.
I believe right now, 250 years after those documents were written, that states need to have way more power than the federal government. The reason why, the federal government is a centralizing force. The states at the same time are a decentralizing force. So from my opinion,
Well, a very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is your entertainment manager, Tim. Do hope you're
Sorry
enjoying
about
our
that.
continued transit through
let's
the
let
wonderful
this guy
Panama Canal
finish
today.
talking.
This announcement is just a brief update to this afternoon's schedule. We were due to have the captain's welcome reception at 5:30 this evening on the open decks. However, as you can see, we are still in the Panama Canal, and it will take us a little bit longer to continue our transit and then complete the formalities. So to that end, we will be postponing this event until
We are in the
tomorrow
Panama
evening.
Canal.
So once again, that is our captain's welcome reception at 5:30 this evening. Is being moved until
and we've
tomorrow.
sunk down.
All the rest of the event remain as they are scheduled in the daily program.
That's
Thank you
actually
very
the
much, and we
sidewall.
do hope
That's
you
why it
enjoy the
gets
rest of
dark.
our
why it gets dark in here and gets light, because it depends when the sun is up, how high and low the boat is. So
Interesting.
to finish the question, I think right now the states are far more important than the federal government. I think some of the executive orders that Trump is put out they're very, very good. And you can see that he's trying to shrink government, very similar to what Malay's doing in Argentina. But the United States is a behemoth compared to most other, governments, just because of what's happened. And I don't even know if you guys know that, like today, some very interesting things happened before I came on. Um, this morning, Trump fired, I believe, 50 inspector generals, which is huge because that clears the deck and really limits centralized control of the federal government. And then 3 planes that were sent to Colombia. There's a reason I'm interested in this, because the next port of call I hit is Colombia. They were rejected by the president of Colombia. So literally about 3 hours ago, Trump just announced 25% tariff on all things Colombian. And if things aren't solved in 24 hours, it goes to 50%. Then he did something even more amazing. He closed the embassy for Colombia in the United States. And tomorrow they have 1,500 people that are signed up to try to get visas. And Trump said they will not reopen until Colombia takes its criminals back. Now, that is a centralized action that Uncle Jack is completely for. Because that to me is a function of central government. And it's also very powerful maneuver for the states. So I think when you ask me this question, there's got to be some nuance to it.
How about in the new era with Bitcoin and decentralized technology? Like kind of like what you're
That's
seeing
the
in
interesting part.
medicine.
That's the interesting part. When you have decentralized money, it doesn't fucking matter what the government does. In fact, I posted something in the healthcare practitioners forum probably 3 days ago that I'm no longer in favor of an SBR. In fact, I don't want the government fucking buying Bitcoin at all. I want you clowns buying Bitcoin. And the reason why is because it not only gets around the government, it also gets around the state government, and it gets around the Fed, it gets around the city of London, it gets around all the idiots in all the other countries. And I keep coming back to something I said in the Breed Love thing. I think that's the reason why I posted it. Bitcoin does not bend its knee to anybody. In fact, Bitcoin changes them. And I think any government that invites Bitcoin in, this is a good thing because the government officially will be affected by it. So if the government gets, cozy with it, great. But are there people in the government that we need to be careful with who will try to do things with Bitcoin that will be an issue? Yeah, it's not going to be they can fuck with Bitcoin, the algorithm, and this and that, but can they try to securitize it or financialize it? So I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. This week, right before I got on this boat, Larry Fink asked for in-kind redemption for IBT, the Bitcoin iShares, and everybody was excited that you could take Bitcoin out. But do you realize when you take Bitcoin out and you have as much Bitcoin as they have, that means that you're creating paper Bitcoin left behind. And it means that potentially some of the centralized controllers can physically harm some people who are just holding, the ETFs. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people in the United States that are holding the ETFs. Why? Because it's in their retirement accounts and they haven't made the decision that they want to, take it out and buy Bitcoin. Why? Because it's a huge taxable event. Well, guess what Trump has also said? He's talking about potentially getting rid of, the tax on Bitcoin. If he does that, then that tells you that Trump is actually really working with the people and not working with his friends, Larry Fink and the other jackass Lutnick that I really don't like. Um, I have a firm belief that while I think many of the things Trump has done, I don't fucking trust him when it's totally about this topic. Why? He's got to show me more. He's shown me a lot. I have to tell you, I like what he's done with the executive orders, but I trust President Bukele on Bitcoin far more than Trump. And I think part of the reason why I have this huge issue with Trump that's cropped up literally here in the last, I would say, week. You know, when he fucking did the shit coin, you know, his coin, Melania, and all that shit. I mean, I'm just like, dude. And then when he came out with the change the word to stockpile instead of SBR, and he's talking about, okay, we're gonna have a committee and we're gonna talk about other shit coins. I'm like, bro, the United States doesn't need other fucking shit coins in an SBR. And I think that's when I kind of started changing my tune about how I feel about this whole thing. The way I'm back to my really salty self that I was in the first Danny Jones podcast, where the United States can go suck a dick. That's the way I feel. They can go fuck themselves. I don't trust them. And I tell all my friends, all my members, I've said this consistently for 4 years. If you guys don't own Bitcoin, A, you're fucking idiots. And B, you need to own as much as you possibly can. I mean, sell your wife's body. You take the gold out of your teeth. You know, teach your daughters to dance in strip bars. I mean, that's how serious I am. You have to get off zero. And you have to have enough so that if the United States does make this decision, then you're going to be, you know, cooking with gas and taking names, you know. And I just think you need to live smaller to get as much as you possibly can. I think this message that I'm giving you, if you're European, if you're Middle Eastern, you're Australian, you're Canadian, you're South American, bro, what I just told the Americans, I'd say go and become a Mormon, marry 6 wives and put them all to work. I'm not kidding you. I'm dead fucking serious about this. You need to get really serious because the only thing I think that's a bigger issue in the world right now. Oh, look, we're moving now. See, we're going up. Look, let me show you. See, water's rising. The only thing that's a bigger deal to me than Bitcoin right now is eliminating the messenger RNA platform. That's about it. That's how big a deal Bitcoin is to me. And I think in every other part of the world, like, and I guess people are going to hate me when I say this, America is really fortunate that we have a lot of politicians that are very Bitcoin forward. I have to tell you, if I was European right now, or Australian or Canadian, there is no fucking way in God's green earth that I would stay in those countries based on what's going on. It's absolutely psychotic. I don't care about your mother. I don't care about your job. You just can't do it. There you have no certainty at all. These people are coming to make you an economic serf. So I think that should pretty much paint the picture of how I see things right now. And it is very different for Americans and for everybody else. And I know this is probably going to create some waves. I would even tell you within America, and you know, Christy's going to hate this. If you're in fucking California, you're in worse fucking shape than if you're in Florida. And same thing is true about New York. I just got into a fight with a guy at the boat upstairs, a bunch of Jewish guys from New York. I went off on them. And of course, they didn't like it. I didn't give a fuck. You know, they didn't like the Bitcoin shirt that I had from Tiffany. You know, they're like, oh, that's crazy. And the election last time wasn't stolen. I'm like, bro, they just fucking preemptively pardon these motherfuckers. Are you going to sit here and tell me that? You're a bunch of fucking idiots. And you know, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Like, when you have Americans in your country that believe that bullshit, and they are homegrown in California, Chicago, and New York, I'm sorry. You can't fucking live with these people because your future is tied to these assholes. That's the truth. And when those assholes start moving to Texas, like I hear so many people, oh, Texas is fucking great. Not for me, it's not. There's no chance I'd live there either. That's how hardcore I am. And you know, why am I taking this trip right now? Some of you may not realize it's actually for your benefit to see if we can continue to build other oases outside in case the shit hits the fan in the States.
Here, here. I have two more questions. They're very brief if you're open.
That's where I stand on that topic. And it's a very important topic.
Yeah, I just wonder because I know you talk about how, the same decentralized tech with blockchain, how you're incorporating it into medicine. And so I'm just wondering how that in terms of political science, how that'll play out in future government.
You want to know the truth? I think if you read Lowry's book, Soft War, I think that's a pretty good take. But do I think it's going to go the way he laid it out in the book with the jackasses in DC? No, I don't. There's very few of them I trust. I'm even telling you, Cynthia Lummis, huh? I've gotten pretty hardcore here in the last 10 days.
Thanks, Jack. I have two more brief questions if you're open to it. They're like spitfire questions.
Better be.
One is about bug bites. I was just kind of thinking if bug bites, mosquito bites, if that is like a biophotonic emission factor attracting, how some people are more attracted, they say it's your blood type.
No, it's actually the amount of light your mitochondria releases.
So if you're more attractive to mosquitoes, does that mean that means you're releasing more light?
Yeah, it means that you're not as healthy. Your redox sucks.
Right. Okay, and then the second one was I read Georges Lakhovsky's Secret of Life book from like the early 1900s, and he talks about how different soil types have different interactions with cosmic waves. Have you done any research into that? Like depending on if you're on
you already
rock,
know that.
clay.
Cosmic waves are actually how evolution really changes. Just remember those microbiome in the dirt is the same shit as the stuff in your gut, and it's the same shit that a mitochondria is made of. So of course it changes it. There's no doubt. I mean, that's not even, you don't even need his work. I mean, this is basic biology now that we understand fully. The problem is the way the world is applying this. Like, for example, in big food in the United States, it's like they fucking don't even have a clue, and ready to take that shit away from the people in Europe. And the people in Europe are like, oh, they are throwing shit at the parliament and stuff like that in different places, but it's a huge factor.
But he was talking about how when the cosmic waves interact with different types of soil, some will actually deter the waves back upward, but then it'll create like a cacophony of different waves that's more deleterious than.
And I don't understand why you're surprised at this. We already know this from Chernobyl, dude. If you have Cryptococcus neoformans in the ground, which is in Chernobyl, it fucking takes care of all the radiation. So yes, life is very, very resilient. So yes, do bugs, soil, bacteria matter? Yes, it does. And has this been present for 4.6 million years on Earth? Of course. That's part of the reason why, I just told the last cat from Europe about it's more about electrodynamic fields. That's exactly what the basis of this is. It's the same question except with a different wrapper.
So if you're buying property, it doesn't matter what kind of soil, if it's clay, if it's sand.
I think it matters, but I think it matters for what you want to do. If you're going to grow on it, you better make sure it's fucking pretty good. And if it's not, make sure you have in your budget that you're going to have to turn the soil over and cultivate it the way farmers have to do in good places. If you follow the teachings of, big ag now, fuck it. You mean farmers could go in there with overalls 50 years ago. Now you have to wear a fucking hazmat suit to go in there.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Jack. That's all I got.
All right. Next.
Okay, Chris, you're next to speak live. If you can go ahead and unmute your line, please. Welcome.
Hello. Hey, Dr. Cruz. fellow UConn dental grad here and newcomer, so please excuse my ignorance. I've been digging into the blogs as much as I can, especially on the subject of autism, and think I'm starting to wrap my head around some of it as far as, you know, epigenetic mutation and MHC1 gene, and then we're leading to you know, affecting the astroglial and the microglial cells, big stress responses forever, and I think that's what I'm getting, but I need to keep reading and keep learning. My question for you is, I heard you mention that this may be like an adaptation to our new current surroundings, and how do you think that became, and how did that take place, and what can we do for these kids as far as reducing the inflammation, other than, if there's anything other than the things that we talk about all the time with light, water, and magnetism?
Everybody should pray for a Carrington event. That would be number one.
Yeah. Yep.
Some of the adaptations, some of these kids can connect in ways that are different than we do. So do I think mental telepathy is potentially something that these kids are better at than we are, but the world is not built yet for them to do that? All of the basic biology behind that is actually in Quantum Engineering 45. So you need to read that.
45. Okay.
That's the number one blog to read, because it talks about how neurulation is controlled and how it works. And for you, since you're new, I'm not going to get on your case, but when you're wearing blue blockers and iPod things in your ear, dude, that is like trying to suck your own dick. Just don't do that. You should just take the glasses off, because these things here, they're terrible for you. And they're sitting right next to your temporal lobes. Like that's probably the biggest mistake that we make with these kids with autism. We actually hand them iPads, we hand them iPhones. Why? Because they're so addicted to it and their behavior seems to get better. But what are we doing? We're digging the hole of their autism. And if you listen to what I said to one of the earlier callers, I think it was to our French Canadian doctor who's in Costa Rica, about wanting to add one of the other drugs to the regimen for jab people. I think when we do this to kids with autism, we go right past their ability to connect wirelessly with other people, and we actually make their disease far worse. In other words, the atavism gets worse. They become more like a non-talking monkey. And when that happens, I think they lose some of their unique abilities that they may have. So, for example, the easiest one to try to explain to people, just because they made a movie out of it, is Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man. You know, where we use the term idiot savant, but it turns out he was kind of like Meyer Lansky of numbers. And do I think that these kids have some of these types of abilities? I actually think they do. And I think the environment's what caused them. The problem is, though, we have no idea how to tune the environment to get the effect. Why? Because it's non-native EMF that's causing it. And when you read that blog, the Quantum Engineering 45 blog, it gives you the basic mechanisms of how all this stuff happens.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Where do you, other than that blog, where's the best place to start?
No,
on your blog?
Place to start. I promise you, when you read that blog you'll have never
send me in a
heard
bunch of different
that. Right. You'll have never heard any of that from anybody else. Everything you've ever heard about autism, you'll have never heard it there. I can tell you, when I wrote that blog for Nicole Shanahan's daughter, Nicole told me, she goes, I spent millions of dollars about this issue with my kid, and not one person has ever said what you said.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate your time.
All right. Good luck.
Okay, we have Joanne. Joanne, you're next to speak live. If you could unmute, please. She's still on here. Yes, I see you on. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move forward. Let's see. Tyler, I have you next on the list. If you can go ahead and unmute. Am I on strike 2 on this one?
Nope, I'm
Nope.
here.
Oh, there you are.
Looking to find
Okay.
the button.
Yep. Welcome.
Hey, hey, Jack, how you doing?
Good.
Just hanging out in El Salvador, having a good time. Yeah, I guess I'll ask this question because I'll probably forget about it if I don't ask it now. So me and my wife were in Mexico in the fall, and now we're in El Salvador, and yeah, things are going well. We're having a good time. But we've gotten food poisoning twice now, and I just wonder, like, am I missing something? Is there something I should be taking as a as a preventative? Am I
I
just
think I think
reckless?
I think where you're sourcing your food matters.
Yeah,
I'm going to tell you, remember, you are in a third world country. Both of those places are third world countries. So you have to be smarter about how you do things. And most food poisoning in both of those countries comes from restaurants. And the restaurants, you have no earthly idea how they're sourcing the food. So how I do it, I source all the food myself that I'm going to eat in there. And the places, like for example, when we had the member event, the 2 places that were restaurants were already vetted by me. Therefore, I knew and nobody was going to get fucking sick and get the shits. You can't do that when you first move to a country. So you're playing, it's like Russian roulette, where,
yeah,
okay, I don't know if the cows that shit on this lettuce, did they wash the turds off? You don't know. But I will tell you, even in my own country club in El Salvador, I don't eat their lettuce. I don't eat their salad. Why? Because they can vet it for me. And because they can vet it, I don't eat it. And anybody who showed up to the member event, there were several people said, "Oh, I'd like to have a salad." I said, "Eat it at your own risk. There's a reason it's not here."
yeah, that makes sense. I guess I was just being reckless then, because I was eating. We went to like nicer places, but it's like I was eating the
Nicer
lettuce.
places in the third world don't matter.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
the
it's like,
source, it's the
yeah,
source of the food.
it makes sense. Is there anything you would take as a preventative on a daily basis? Any kind of
You,
herbs to kind of
food
get like that?
poisoning is simple. You got to get over it.
Yeah.
3, 4, 5 days of shits and Hershey squirts and puking. And once you clear the toxin, it's gone. The one thing I will tell you is the higher your redox is, the faster, it goes by the wayside. The lower your redox is, the worse it's going to get. And I will tell you, there's certain food poisoning that's worse than other. Like I think the worst one, the worst 3 are probably E. coli, salmonella, and then Vibrio. Vibrio you tend to get from raw seafood. So like if you go to a new seafood place, you probably don't want to do the raw stuff. I broke that rule, just so you know, when I was in Peru last month, but I was with one of my members and he said, "No, this is a really good restaurant. I vetted it." So I trusted him. And guess what? I didn't get the shits. I didn't get sick from it. But am I always careful about stuff like that? If I'm going to a new country, I'm not eating anything raw.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, El Salvador wasn't bad. I was over it in a day or two, but Mexico was fucking brutal, dude. Oh my God.
Yeah, well, Mexico is brutal, and you have to remember Mexico is also tied to the inflation story. So they're going to try to source really cheap shit. I mean, just remember when you go some of those resorts, just even with the booze, they take the booze out and they put fucking wood alcohol to replace it with food coloring, and you don't even know, that you're not drinking like, real tequila. You're drinking fucking shit, and people go blind. I mean, and this is at a 4 and 5 star resort. So, in fact, I had just got into a discussion yesterday with David Lamb before we got on the boat. He told me the reason he didn't come to the member event is because I didn't have the member event in an all-inclusive resort like I used to down in Mexico. And I told him, I said, "David, there was some problems with some of that stuff, but that's something that he physically liked." And I said, "Well, look, you didn't event. I think you would have liked it because I think the people who came could vouch on both sides that the food was pretty solid. My problem is I just don't know if I want to do another member event.
Too much work.
I wouldn't say too much work. I just don't know if the risk benefit ratio was worth it. I'm still not sold on it yet. People keep telling me no, but I think it's going to take me a little bit longer to process everything.
What risk are you talking about?
I just don't know if it was worth doing.
Yeah, gotcha. Makes sense. Well, we're scoping out places in El Salvador. What is your current favorite place as far as like purely health? I don't care about anything else.
Metapan.
Metapan.
Bernate, second one, Lake Coatepeca, Ilopango, Soyapango. I was just at Coatepeca. Place is awesome.
Okay. We'll go check it out.
Start right. We're gonna be
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right.
After that, we're gonna continue our passage into Bocas del Toro, where we're gonna be picking up our pilot tomorrow morning at
Talking
6:30.
again.
Yeah, they're telling us they're getting rid of the Panama Canal pilot because you can see where we are now.
Next couple of days, expect the winds due to blow
Oh.
We're in a lake now.
Mhm.
25 knots,
So they're just telling us they expect the weather to get
about 2.5 meters.
bad. So
This
more
one is gonna
wind.
Stay with us well all
It's
the
gonna
way until Aruba.
So it's gonna be that way all the way to Aruba. So guess what?
Exercise
When
caution.
I went through Drake's Passage, it was gnarly, and it looks like the top of South America is gonna be gnarly too. So
And eventually some rolling.
I guess there's gonna be lots of people on this boat puking. So we'll see how it goes.
We have about 150
Good luck.
miles.
Okay, so we're going to go to questions to be asked. The first one is from Kata. She had 3 questions. And just to note to you, Kata, is that the first 2 questions, please post those on the forum. And we'll go in the direction for those. But number 3, she is asking, if ivermectin inhibits nuclear import of SV40, does SV40 become like a forever chemical, or will it be metabolized eventually?
I think I answered that question earlier.
Thank you.
That right now, my position is you can't get rid of SV40. And I think the SV40 in this jab is far worse than the SV40 in the other ones. Now, obviously, that's the state of affairs on January 23rd or 24th, whatever today day is, in 2025. I fully expect that to change, but no one did more testing on SV40 than Sarah Stewart and Mary Sherman. And they were woeful at trying to get an answer for it.
Okay, next is from Mike. Wouldn't UV light, black lights affect our clocks when the sun is down?
There's no UV light externally, but if you're asking about UV light you make inside, the answer is yes. But if you're talking about using UV light externally, it's never going to be present unless you add UV light to the mix at that time. And I've been looking for papers for 20 years to see if there's anything untoward of doing that. And right now, I haven't really found too much, especially about UVA light. That really concerns me, but it's not present, naturally at nighttime. I think the best practices, first principle practices, is when the sun goes down, all light should go down in your life.
Wait, I didn't get to ask my question. Can I ask?
Yeah, because we probably didn't like your question.
Yeah, we stated at the very beginning of the call, questions were reviewed. If you were not listed, you're at the very end, or I will send you an email. So, okay,
Can I
thank
just
you.
say one thing to Dr. Cruz then? I don't really have anything. I just have something I kind of need to say. It's kind of like a thing I really wanted to say to him. Please, Dr. Cruz. and everybody. My name is Tom. I greet you in the love of light and the light of love. And I hope everyone out there is doing well. I have something to share with you all today that I think will help a lot of you in a non-linear way, meaning in your next life, in your previous life, simultaneously. And I also think it'll help Dr. Cruz. Dr. Cruz, I love you. I've read Quantum Engineering 1 through 71. Here it is right here. I've read it all.
Can you get to the point? Because
Please,
you're
we have a
already
lot.
pissing me off.
Okay. Do you know about Chris Langan?
Yep.
Do you know about his cognitive theoretical model of the universe?
Yep.
I thought his meaning of syndiphionesis, how it laid over the difference, how it combined syntax and semantics. He talked about you separate your telesis and your free will into two, and
All right,
therefore,
just hold tight. This isn't appropriate for your Q&A. So this is what I want you to do. You want to talk about this, you start
Okay.
an optimal journal and you put it there. That's where it starts. Next question, Christy.
Okay, sorry about that. Let's see. We are going to go on to, let me find this one. Next one in the list that's going to be asked, we have a lot here, I'm telling you guys. Okay, is by Bart. Hi, Dr. Cruz. My wife and I are the couple from Southeast Louisiana who saw you for a consult a few months ago. Number one, we have a family member with a 14-year-old daughter recently diagnosed with von Willebrand syndrome, the variant that can change over time.
Stop. I remember this. Von Willebrand's is a factor VIII deficiency. It's genetic. Nothing is going to fix that except giving her cryoprecipitate with factor VIII in it. It's not a mitochondrial disease. Therefore, none of the things that we teach are going to have a huge impact on it. Okay? End of report.
Okay, number two from Bart, wanted to ask if anything has changed with your MSTU play. I read Friday morning that MicroStrategies might have to pay unrealized capital gains on their Bitcoin holdings. What are your thoughts?
That was already talked about on the internet and debunked. So no, there's not going to be any excess taxes associated with it. The MSTU play is, I think, still intact, but the FASB rules don't really go into effect until this quarter coming up. So do I think the action for that is still yet to come? The answer is yes. Do I think MSTR am I still bullish on it? Yes. The tax issue, though, is a moot point.
Okay, next is Elson. Do hair cells have anything to do with maintaining balance in humans? What is the function of hair?
Of course they do. You have hair cells in your endolymphatic sac. You have it in your semicircular canals. I think I've written 6 blogs on the inner ear. So the answer is yes. But the hair cells that are in that part of your body are not like the hair cells on your head. Okay? They operate differently. But can hair cells in those places, when they go south, lead to horrible, horrible conditions? The answer is yes.
Okay, next is from Doc McGill. Out of curiosity, I have followed the CDC weekly flu map of the states for years. Every year, the flu incidence and prevalence always starts in the Gulf states and shows up last in the northern states. I'm fully on board with everything you say about light and sun exposure, but this baffles me. Can you provide some insight?
Who lives in the Gulf states? Lots of brown people. There's your answer.
Okay, next is from Dondi. I'm 53 and had vertigo. Brain MRI shows missing right vertebral artery segment 4 like congenital. Other than being a black swan, do you have some insight or is there a blog I can dissect?
No, I mean, this one's easy. If you've got a congenital missing part of your vertebra, it tells you to live prior to you having your problem, that you had good collateral flow. So if you're now having problems, they probably need to do imaging studies on you. Easiest one to do is something called an MRA. If they can't find it on an MRA, then they're going to have to do an angiogram on you to find out, is the collateral flow screwed up in you, or do you have posterior vertebral basilar insufficiency, which is very likely why you have the tinnitus. So the workup for that should be pretty obvious, even for a centralized doc. But you missing that congenitally is not a big issue. Why? Because abnormalities of the carotid and vertebral basilar system is pretty common, but most neurosurgeons know that the collateral flow in and around the circle of Willis can be done a variety of different ways.
Next is from Amber. Best tips to detox in NSAIDs and anesthesia residue post-surgery. I have already temporarily for a few weeks relocated to Florida, getting sunlight, grounding on the beach barefoot, no sunglasses. I'll be back in the Midwest.
There's no detox for aspirin. So you have to just stay off of it for 2 weeks and then your platelets come back. If you have an issue with surgery, people will do platelet studies on you and find out if you need platelet replacement before you have the surgery. Generally, it's just a time phenomenon. There is no detox for aspirin.
Okay, from Juan Diego, what salt should I consume? Brand, what ingredients should it have?
I actually, you'll have to look this one up, but I long time ago, and I think it was either in a webinar or a blog, but it's a long time ago, probably 15 years ago. I talked about a brand of salt that is harvested out of a place in France. I think it was Fleur de Sal, meaning the flower of the sea. And they grow this salt in salt pools. It's a very interesting place. And I think you could probably do a Google search and find it. But this salt is really, really good, and it doesn't have a lot of really nasty stuff in it. The stuff you have to worry about, most salts, commercial salts, is you have to worry about. Okay, here you go. Chantal just gave it to me. Fleur de Seal. Can you see that? That's it. And I think, yeah, this says it's in Normandy, and they've used this since ancient times. So it's got like a 2,000-year history, according to, what's here. And it's close to Normandy. If you've ever been to Normandy, you'll know that it's pretty damn cold there, but they have these big, huge salt fields where they make these salt blocks, and that's where the salt comes from. And it's directly from the ocean. But the stuff that you have to worry about with commercial salts now is there's a lot of halides in it, meaning bromine, fluoride, and iodine. I'm okay with the iodine, but I would still tell people if you can buy salt without any of the halides, I think that's probably the best thing. And that salt, this stuff right here, I used to have it. I'm kind of hoping this year when I go to Prague that I may be able to stop in France and pick some of it up. Or if any of these European people are going to go to Prague, maybe you can bring me a freaking case of it or something. Because it's hard to get. I can't get it in El Salvador, and I don't have it. I ran out of all of my stash in Louisiana, but it's really good. And it ain't cheap. It's a little bit expensive.
Okay, next from Juan Diego is, can my cousin have transmitted a cancer to his girlfriend? They are both under 30.
Yes.
Yes.
The newest blog tells you about shedding. We now know it's real. We know it's not fake. It's now in the peer-reviewed literature. The problem is we don't know truly what the risk is. So it's one of those things you got to worry about. You really got to worry about.
From Kate, a few questions from Sydney. Number 1, treatment for the jab. If you have not personally taken the jab, but your partner has, and you're having unprotected intercourse, would you still recommend
Find a new partner?
Yeah, that's, I knew your question. That was going to be the answer.
Well, I mean, that's what I would do, or you could just have to use a rubber. And I would say use a rubber and probably use a diaphragm. But I'm going to be honest with you. I hate to say this, but this is going to be brutal. If somebody took the jab, that means they're compliant. That means your redox is going to go like this. I said in the redox relationship, soon as a relationship starts to go like this, it's doomed. And you have to realize Juan Diego just asked the question, hey, can you get cancer? I mean, think about these two questions. The fact that they're next to each other in the Q&A should be like, boom. If you, this is exactly the thing that people went through with HIV. I mean, if you're in love with somebody and they went out and got HIV and you're going to bang them unprotected, you're fucking crazy. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's the truth. And it's the same story here. And I know that none of you want to hear this, but you have to have a zero tolerance policy. And I would just agree to shake hands and say, I think we're either having totally protected sex or maybe it's time for us, you know, to think about, you know, parting ways. And, you know, I'll mention this because it kind of shocked Chantal. This question came up probably, I think it was like 4, 5, 6 years ago. And I told her the answer about protected sex, and she was kind of stunned because it came up with a farm member. And we went to Germany, and don't you think this came up in the Q&A with Alexander Wunsch? And he said exactly the same thing, that is sex as good when you use protection? The answer is no, because you're blocking the biophotons. So you have to realize that creates the change in redox power. And when you actually think about it, this is kind of one of those things that I think leads to divorce. I think it leads to breakups. So, you know, the person that didn't take the jab, I think you're the one that really has to start looking in the mirror and really thinking about things. And if you're the woman, you're probably going to totally shit the bed and make the wrong decision. If you're the guy, you're probably going to be more brutal about this because you understand what it means. And then, like, if you have no kids and this and that, I mean, think about what it means for that. You're basically having a kid is an absolute train wreck. And then what happens with the kid? You know, if you do have a kid, it's just, there's nothing about this that's good. And I'm sorry if anybody doesn't like it, but it is what it is.
Okay, next is from, let's see, from Kate. She's got a couple more questions. With the CBD, would this be recommended as a daily addition for the jabbed?
Well, it's in the blog. I mean, whoever Kate is, she clearly is not reading the blog.
Yeah.
I mean, it's talked about in the last 3 blogs about the jab. See, this is the kind of shit that pisses me off. Read the damn blog. If Kate's new, okay, I'll give her a pass, but it's in there. And, you know, Kevin McKiernan has done a lot of stuff on his blog about the effect of CBD in different formats, about how it interacts with SV40 and how it interacts with the immune system. So you could read his stuff as well. But, you know, I did a webinar a long time ago about the endocannabinoid system and the immune system. That's part of the reason why the stuff that's in the current blogs shouldn't be surprising to anybody, because I think I mentioned it already in 16 or 17 when I did the endocannabinoid blogs and webinars.
Yeah, if you put a term in the blogs and optimal clubs, you put CBD, it's going to put all the blogs that reference CBD in it, and it'll do it
This
for
one, Chrissy, I think this one was a webinar, so it may not pop up on that.
That might
Because I
not
think
pop
it was, I think it was a webinar, and I think it was from either 15 to 17. I don't remember, but it was a while ago.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's see if this question. On another note, for patients with low DHEA and or low T3 who do not change their environment, which is likely the cause due to pregnenolone steal, would DHEA and T3 be beneficial to replace to help them feel better? If not, why?
It's got to be a new member again. You take exogenous stuff, it's going to affect the endogenous game. So will it help you short term? Yes. Will it help you long term? No.
Next is from Nate. Some of the scientists involved in the grounding studies are suggesting that when you connect yourself to a grounding sheet, you receive the Schumann frequency. Question 1, is grounding a static phenomena or is it frequency based?
How about neither? It's totally dynamic. And by the way, those scientists are idiots.
Question 2 of that is, what is the grounding mechanism, both charge and discharge effect?
I mean, that's simple. It's anode and cathode. It's basic electrochemistry. I mean, that's like conventional physics.
Okay, next is Leonardo. Having suddenly lost the use and strength in your legs at age 72 when trying to get up, is that being caused by your cells not producing enough energy because of environmental blue light in an MEF and or a latitude mismatch?
No, I mean, could it be? Yeah, but you have to work the problem up. The most likely cause could be a neurodegenerative disorder. It could be spinal cord compression in your neck. It could be the artery of Adamkowitz off your aorta, peripheral vascular disease.
And he's
It also,
asking, could cervical spondylosis have anything to do with the issue?
yeah, well, that's actually what causes spinal cord compression in your neck. So the answer is the workup for that is huge. There's a lot of things that can cause it. Spinal stenosis can cause this. So, I mean, you just got to get it worked up. If you ask me, would non-native EMF blue light toxicity be the top of the list? No, but is it a cofactor for all the things I just mentioned? The answer is yes.
Okay, next is, according to Pollock, salt decreases the mitochondrial EZ. Does the same occur when using fluoridated kitchen or table salt? And what is the link between this type of salt and high blood pressure?
Just answered that question a little while ago. I just said fluoride is a halide that causes dielectric collapse, so it shrinks the EZ. So of course you want to avoid it.
How much value should we place in regular blood pressure checks?
Depends. I mean, if you don't have a big history of blood pressure, probably not that much. I think blood pressure numbers, just like cholesterol numbers, have been dialed down so that way doctors will write more prescriptions for medications. But if you have, say, blood pressure related to LNPs and the jab, and you got myocarditis, it's a fucking huge big deal. So again, this is context related. And since the question has no context in it, you have to know.
Okay, next is, do you still find yourself making mistakes as a superhuman, or is every decision or choice perfectly calculated?
I think this is a bad question.
Yeah.
Humans are fallible. Doesn't matter who you are. You're much more apt, I think, to make mistakes when you're confident, which, I think I did a pretty good job of laying that out to Breedlove when I told him about how I write down the things that I think I hold to be true every year to see if they really are, to fight against my own Dunning-Kruger moment. But even if you do all that stuff right, are you still going to make mistakes? The answer is yeah. I mean, you're fucking human. There's no way around it. And that's part of human nature. The real goal is to try to limit your own mistakes and learn from other people's mistakes, so that way you minimize them. And hopefully when you make the mistake, it's not, involved in a big part of your life that, can kill you. Like, for example, the question that somebody just asked before about, hey, should I still bang my wife when she took the jab and I didn't? That's a really tough question when you consider, what I just said. I mean, for me, you probably already know the answer. For me, the way I think about it, to me, that's a done deal. As soon as someone decides to comply, whatever the reason is, it doesn't matter to me. I'm out.
Okay, next question is, if our eye muscles are part of our tensegrity system, does myopia affect?
Not. We just talked about that with Tiffany. Tiffany brought that up before about her strabismus surgery that she had twice. Eye muscles aren't the tensegrity part of the system. The collagen fibrils inside those muscles are. So those eye muscles are part of the skeletal muscle system. The tens griddy is much, much smaller. It's on collagen level, and it actually has to do with the dielectric constant in the water around that as it works as a semiconductor. So this question, they may have been using the wrong term, or it's semantics, or it's just ignorance. I don't know, but I want to make sure you get that the muscle skeletal system is really not considered part of the tens griddy system.
Next question is, born with kidney dysplasia or one functioning kidney, will one be able to live a full circadian life in the right environment?
If you didn't take the jab, yes. If you took the jab, the answer is we don't know. Probably not.
What's the link, if there's any, between kidney failure, heart disease, high blood pressure, and memory loss?
The renin aldosterone system.
Okay, I've recently watched a Jeff Leach video where he talked about his interesting research on the Hadza people and their microbiome. He explained how they looked at one family and found bacteria passed on from grandmother to grandchild by touch. If bacteria emit light, what significance does this have on a grandchild's microbiome?
It's huge. I mean, come on. Light is how we communicate. It's how the sperm and egg communicate initially. It's everything. It's everything around you. And not only that, I mean, let's just cut to the chase. You just said grandmother and child. Remember, that child came from eggs that were in you at some point. So, I mean, when I get a question like this, I'm immediately thinking it's got to be a new person. If it's not a new person, I'm going to be really angry. But this is transgenerational epigenetics 101. It's a huge factor.
Next from him is, wild animals generally have a beautiful and distinctively symmetrical face and anatomy. I've also been looking at pictures of the indigenous, for instance, the Hadza, expecting the same. Looking at our own Western world faces, I see nothing but asymmetry structurally, but especially facially. Is this also a result of living in an altered environment, leading to, for instance, scoliosis?
I have talked about this ad nauseum on multiple podcasts. Okay. I talked about Peter Unger. I don't know how many times. He's the world expert in mammalian skulls and dentition. He's found the older you go back when people lived in nature, the more perfect their skulls are and the more perfect their teeth is. He's also the guy that found the Anubian skulls that were dumped next to the Sphinx, and they were perfect, and they were absolutely abnormal compared to the pharaohs that we know about from the sarcophagus, who had all kinds of fucked up facial features and fucked up teeth that mimicked, what we see in modern humans today. So to me, this link is blatantly obvious. There's no question that when man started changing his environment, so did his muscle skeletal system.
Okay, next is, the Red Women of Huanglio Village in China are known for their long black hair without any grays even into old age. The reason why probably has nothing to do with them washing their rice water, as I've read in many explanations for this phenomenon, but more with high altitude UV, low EMF, and possibly a strong magnetic field, sort of similar to the Sherpas. Somewhat carefully, I dare to say it's a melanin story. What's your take?
Don't know. Couldn't tell you.
Is heteroplasmy rate measurable, and head, heart, in each organ?
It's an interesting question. Do I think yes? I think there was a blog in the hypoxia series where I posited that specific issue. So I would tell you, go back and look. I think it was the first 4 to 6 blogs where I talked about that, especially when it's tied to both thymine biology, but also transketolase. So yeah, I do think it's possible. It's just difficult to do. I think if you listen to any of Doug Wallace's videos, especially the old ones from 2015, 16, and 17, I just did a consult with a member, I think two days ago, where actually this was the homework that I gave them, that it was a kid who actually wanted me to talk to his mother at the end of the consult. And I was kind of resistant to do it. I said, your mom doesn't know anything about any of this stuff. She's just fallen into this at the end. I said, I think the smart thing is to have your mom and dad watch this so they understand what heteroplasmy is, so they get really what the issue is. And then, you ask questions based on that. The one thing that the way to think about heteroplasmy, it has its own zip code in every tissue in your body, and it's a function of how good or bad the batteries are in that system. So, for example, I heard this from two consultants in the last 3 or 4 days, and it made me shake my head. If you come on a consult and tell me, hey, I'm really healthy and this and that, but I've had 2 cancers, you're not healthy. Okay, where you've had the cancers are your weakest link. So that's an issue. Or, hey, I'm really healthy, but I had a heart attack in the past. Your heart is where the heteroplasmy rise. Or, hey, I had at 4 years old, I had a polycystic astrocytoma, and then I developed hydrocephalus down the road and had to have a third ventriculostomy. Your heteroplasmy rate in your brain is off the chain. So you need to understand you can have high heteroplasmy in one organ and you can have it low everywhere else. What does that mean? You've got one single disease. Okay. Now, most people, like if you got fibromyalgia, 2 autoimmune conditions, obesity, here and there, then you can have it in multiple different organs. I've told people about my own issue with obesity. I think it was a function transgenerationally from the story you heard about my mother in Central Park and sitting out there. But I never had, and I mean, I'm fucking 60 years old. I still don't take any medicines. It's about the only issue I got. And every time I go back into an environment that's got non-native EMF or blue light at night, it fucking kicks my ass. So I know that my heteroplasmy rate in that specific part, what do I think it is? If you were to ask me, I think it's my choroid plexus in the eye. Have I posted about that in blogs? Yeah, I showed you the first or best predictor of childhood obesity is actually thickening of the choroid plexus. Now, do I think everybody who's fat has that problem? No, they don't. Getting obesity is kind of like it's kind of like the COVID jab. You're going to get sick. You just don't know what kind of sickness you're going to get. And, like people, for example, who have AIDS, if you think about Magic Johnson, he's got obesity with the buffalo hump on the back. People have, what do you call it? I'm blanking on the name. Addison's disease. They tend to have adrenoleukodystrophy in different places, meaning that their fat is not prominent. People who have hypercortisolism, like females with PCOS, or people who have pituitary tumors, they can get truncal obesity, buffalo humps. Many AIDS patients get weird fat deposits in different places. The latest group that we're starting to see this in is people that are fat, take Ozempic, they're getting, fat loss in places you shouldn't have it. So a lot of times their eyes suck back into the head and they almost look like they're dying. They look cachectic. This is a function of where the heteroplasmy is worse in that part of your body. Even within your fat mass, those changes exist, and I think that's true with sub-Q fat. I think it's also true with visceral fat. And I think it's true with fat deposition in different organs. So it can vary.
Okay, next is from Rowan. We have relationship redox number 5. Proton gradients are foundational to your life. In this blog, B3 is discussed. Would lack of B3 in solar redox have given rise to exfoliative ketitis?
Probably not. I mean, you have to remember something about B vitamins. What's the key? They're all water soluble. So if your mitochondria isn't making water, are you really deficient in the vitamin or are you deficient in the water? Got it? And that's the real big ticket. We know people that have niacin deficiencies, like the severe ones that are nutritional. That's pellagra. That's pretty obvious. We also know about beriberi. That's pretty obvious. The issue is with somebody who had a skin condition, you can easily do a B3 level and find out whether they have these conditions or not. Most commonly, that's not going to lead to a skin problem. Generally, if you got a skin problem, you got a huge issue with your circadian mechanism in your skin. And what did I tell you? Once the eye goes, the skin clocks go next, then the gut clocks go after that. That is much more likely.
Okay, Rowan, continuing. I recently met another member who I felt sure had a B3 deficiency, a niacin nicotinamide deficiency. Also had chicken skin, fungal type acne, dermatitis, etc. that has improved with cold therapy, grounding at sunrise, and proper circadian principles. So does this blog say that vitamin B3 needs to be taken in conjunction with improving solar redox in order to work?
I think I just answered that question.
So let me continue.
No, I mean, I'm not going to let you continue because this is getting ridiculous.
I see you, Rowan.
You just said that people got better fixing their circadian mechanism. You do that, you make more water, and magically, guess what happens? The problem goes away. You don't need to do any of that bullshit. If they got better, why the hell would you ever consider, B3? To me, that's just fucking psychotic thinking. And it makes no sense to do that. Now, if they hire you to be their doctor and that's what your diagnosis is, sure, you can order the test and then hopefully you can reorder the things in your head. But that would not be on the top of my list at all.
Okay. Okay, next is Indy. How did you manage your emotions when you were alone in your early discoveries and there was literally no one to talk to about LWM?
I don't. It's so funny that the people ask me this. I mean, Breedlove asked me the same thing. I don't have emotional problems about that. I don't. And I mean, when you ask me a question like that, I have to be honest with you. This is going to sound like a total dick thing to say. I think people that believe that, they have redox problems in their brain. I never had that problem. And for me, it got worse being a neurosurgeon. I was probably the worst person to ever become a neurosurgeon because then they trained me on already emotions really never got to me, even as a kid. To me, it was everything was cause and effect. Like, I don't want to be poor. Tell me, Mr. Silbert, what I got to do. I don't want to be like my family. Tell me what I got to do. And was I emotional about it as a kid? Like, was I mad about being a poor white kid in New York City? Fuck no. I wasn't. I was like, okay, this is the cards I'm dealt. How do I change it? See, I was very different. And I have to tell you, when I became a neurosurgeon, I think I became a really a prick about this because I don't think I think if you have good redox in your orbital frontal gyrus, in your limbic system, in your habenular nucleus, you don't get emotional issues. But I've said this to multiple people multiple times. And I think I said this in this call already, that when you lose all stress, no matter what it is, psychological stress, emotional stress, sexual stress, divorce stress, you name the stress, stress reduces POMC signaling. That means if that happens in those tracks, then I'll give Indy +5. Do I think a lot of people who are very emotional have that issue? Absolutely. And those people to this very day still aggravate me. Why? Because I don't see the world the way they see it. I don't. I immediately, as soon as I see that, I'm like, okay, I know what the deal is. I know where the problem is. neurologically. And the best way for you to fix this is use your eyes and your skin, especially in your trigeminal nerve, and get it better. You know, then you have people out there like, what's his name? Gabor Mate, who tells you about, you know, all this emotional stress when you're a kid and this and that. You know what he never tells anybody? That that stress response destroys POMC. He doesn't know fucking shit about POMC. You know, so do I agree that a stressor transgenerationally or when you're a kid can destroy this process in, you know, a developing frontal lobe? Yeah, of course. But don't go fucking blaming, you know, all this stuff and turn it into psychobabble. There's a good explanation for how this happens. And it aggravates me with the stress response because everybody thinks there's a different pathway. No, there's one pathway for all stress in the body. And stress in the right dose is a hormetic effect. Stress outside the hormetic effect is highly destructive, especially if you never rebuild it, which is part of the reason why I think the melanin renovation is incredibly important, you know, for people to go back and understand. And why is this, I think, good news and maybe bad news for people? I think people who are mentally ill, this is like the greatest news you could ever get because I think most of them are fixable because of this issue. The problem is most of them can't get out of their own fucking way and do the right things correctly. And that's part of their mental illness. They don't even have their own awareness. So it usually takes, you know, someone around them or one of their family members to get it. And I like to give this example, especially to the new members that are listening to this, because our membership collectively dealt with this. We all saw this unfold in Q&As a couple of years ago. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but I think most of the long timers will know. We had a member come on here and say that they were going to kill themselves and do this and that. And I made the comment to that member, you're white as fuck, you live in a high latitude. How about you just get your ass down to El Salvador? And I bet you're not going to be as crazy as you think you are. And what happened? That person eventually came down after 6 months of mentally masturbating, fighting with their family. And what happened? First Q&A, they were tan, their nose was peeling, and they weren't crazy anymore. And they weren't thinking about killing themselves anymore. And then 6, 7 months ago, everybody saw it with another doctor's son who was getting ready to be institutionalized because of bad behavior. And she blamed it on COVID and this and that, and blamed it on California, blamed it on everything but with what the real cause was. And guess what? What did I say? Get to a better environment, rewire the POMC and the pathways that are there, and magically it'll go away. What happened? It happened. Now, if you're bipolar or you're schizophrenic for like fucking, I don't know, 40 years, you got to fucking stay where you need to be. You know, it's kind of the same thing that I told Tiffany earlier about her strabismus. If you're 46 years old and you've had to have 2 eye muscle surgeries for the same problem, and you've been wearing contacts and glasses, no, this ain't getting better in 3 months in El Salvador. Okay. It's not. The same thing is true with these other things about mental illness. I think those are the people that absolutely need to live in a caldera and stop fucking making every excuse that they usually make. Oh, my mother, my father, my disability, my this and that. Well, then guess what? Just fucking stay crazy. But I'm telling you, I really think that plugging back into the source code the right way, I think most mental illnesses, I'd say at least 95%, can be improved dramatically. Mm-hmm. And that means also any stress related disease also can be improved dramatically. So that means, you know, if you have an asshole husband, an asshole wife, you know, asshole kids, if you get to a good environment, you know, your stress level will go away. And if you are with somebody who likes to stress you on purpose, kind of like me, I want to show you what it's like to go to Lake Huantepec, have me scream at you all day, and you start going, I don't care. See, she's laughing back there because she knows that's that's magically her.
Mhm.
The thing is, people have to get that lesson that the defect isn't in them, it's in the environment. And I think that everybody really needs to hear this loud and clear. You heard when I shut Christy down about the von Willebrand's disease. I'm like, no, 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 hold on. That is a genetic issue. Totally different ballgame than mitochondrial based. That person is going to need factor eight replaced. You know, there's no ifs, ands, or buts for that. But not all diseases. In fact, most diseases aren't like that. Most of them are fixable. And I'm not going to tell you there's not some mental disorders that don't have a genetic basis. They do, but they're exceedingly rare.
Hmm. Okay, next is from Nicole. She's got 2 questions. Number 1, I'm a new member and have been exploring your blogs and Q&A discussions to learn more about migraines. I've experienced migraines since I was 6 years old, and I've noticed clear hormonal patterns as they occur monthly. Other triggers seem to be related to stress or lack of sleep. As I search for solutions, could you recommend any specific blogs or webinars that might help me narrow my focus?
I can tell you right now, I just posted a paper about migraines that show it's 100% totally related to mitochondrial function and non-native EMF. It's definitely the stress response. She just said, I notice a difference with my hormones. What are your hormones? They're light ferry boats. Totally fits. There's stuff on the forum. Forget about blogs. How about the stuff on the forum that's free that you can search right there? There's stuff about migraines on that.
Mhm.
I think migraines are absolutely a light mediated phenomenon. No doubt about it. And it means that you have horrible redox in the brain, the CSF, and I think probably some of the tracks that I just talked about before. Do I think migraines are actually on the spectrum of mental disorders? The answer is yes, I do. That also means that they are very treatable. But what is not treatable? Some people never get better because they refuse to change the environment they're in. Or when they find out that their job or their house does that, well, I can't do that. Well, then you can't fix it.
The next part of her question. In terms of managing pain until I can address the root cause, I know that Excedrin and aspirin are hard on the gut and they don't always work for me, or I'm unable to keep them down. I read your experience using cold therapy for pain relief after surgery and thought it might be worth trying for migraines. I've used a small ice pack on the back of my head or on the forehead in the past, but it didn't seem to be effective. I'm now considering a more comprehensive approach, such as 2 ice packs, one to lie on and another drape over the head, covering it entirely. Are there any risks you see with freezing my head besides freeze or burn?
Oh, in fact, I've told people this multiple times. You're new, so I'm going to repeat it because I don't think you've heard it. Uh, you should never put it on the back of your head or the top of your head. It should be going right here on your carotid arteries on the side of your neck. The other thing is sticking your head in the freezer and taking deep breaths of cold air. Why? Because it goes into your nose, into your ethmoid plate, cools the undersurface of your brain. That's the orbital frontal gyrus. That's where a ton of CSF is. It actually helps tremendously. You have to turn off all light. In my opinion, you also have to turn off the circuit box. I think many migraines are tied to dirty electricity. Many of them are from stroboscopic effect of light, LED light, incandescent light, fluorescent light. Um, Probably most people don't realize how modern life, this is a modern disease, migraines are. Um, it can be mitigated really easily. I used to tell people the story of 2013 when I went to the Hattiesburg Clinic, and distinctly remember that the nurses that worked in the Hattiesburg Clinic had told me that the neurologists were making money hand over fist from treating migraines from their own employees. So I told the people in the Hattiesburg Clinic, if you allow me to go through, wow, and we are going through some serious waves. Holy shit, we're out of Panama Canal, and I will tell you, the waves are pretty big. I said to them, I said, if you get out of my way, I think I can save you at least $1 million. Here's what the problem was. The number one diagnosis that the clinic was paying for its own employees was for migraines. And when I came up with a treatment plan for the nurses, one of the big ones was actually fixing their phones and actually putting F-Lux on all the computers. The neurologist lost $2.1 million in billing in 1 year. And guess what happened then? They didn't give two fucks that their employees felt better. They were pissed that something I did took the money out of their pockets. And, that was 11 years ago. So I've got a lot of experience with migraines, personally. And when I mean personally, I don't have migraines, but dealing with centralized idiots in healthcare that never, ever taught their patients how the environment was a huge, big deal. But it's a huge, big deal. So I would tell you, study the form first. Then I would say use a Google or a Yandex box and put my name and migraines in. I bet you'll find a ton of stuff. But I know the form has got stuff on migraines.
Okay, let's see, Louisa. Number 1, EpiPaleoRx recommends avoiding poultry and fowl. Is free-range Italian chicken or goose grown without antibiotics an exception to the rule?
No.
Okay, number 2.
I don't have a problem with you eating it, but I mean, chicken is shit. It's just like, I look at chicken like you being a vegetarian. If you want to eat like a rabbit, you're going to get a suboptimal brain. Now, do I think you can eat chicken every so often? Yeah, I don't have a problem with you doing that, but it's not a staple. I mean, I can tell you in the last 10 years, maybe 2 times I've eaten chicken, maybe 3. But I'll eat duck. I'll eat all. In fact, I think when I'm done with you guys today, I'm going to eat duck. Am I eating duck today? Yeah, I'm eating duck. There you go. That duck is my chicken.
Okay, number 2, in Quantum Thermo number 3, Information Quanta, April 19th, 2018, I read that living oysters reefs dissipate wave energy in the oceans, and their matter does the same thing inside our tissues. Could you explain further the energetic benefits viruses protection of eating oysters, if having them cooked versus raw is equivalent, how many of them to have every week at minimum, and how to source them cleanly?
This is classic. You didn't read the blog. So there's a whole blog called Viral Marketing. Read it. You need to read it. Then you want to learn about oysters and why they're important. The brain gut series. I think brain gut, I don't know, 2 through 5, epic. And just so you guys know, this is on the old Jack Cruz forum. It's not on Patreon. You just search them and they magically show up. Okay. Like these are like foundational blogs. And when you ask me what's the amount, you're looking for the dose. I don't know how fucked up your brain is. So how could I ever answer that question? That's the kind of stuff that we would do on a consult. But I can tell you this, when somebody is, I'll tell you for me, how do I like oysters? I tell people 3 raw oysters once a week when you're in a good situation. The sicker you are, the more oysters you need. If you got 3 autoimmune conditions, you took the jab, you've had cancer, you got fibromyalgia, and your husband's an asshole, you should probably eat it 3 or 4 times a week, like a dozen raw oysters. There's no better food on the planet for humans because of your heart and brain than an oyster. Nothing comes close. It's kind of like how I feel about Bitcoin. Bitcoin and oysters have a lot in common. There is no second best.
Okay, Steve, I was wondering the best way to approach indoor light management regarding windows. My understanding is that windows change sunlight's wavelengths and maybe other things, so I start closing the blinds and using full spectrum lighting during the day. I didn't know if there was a better approach other than having windows open or just being outside.
Oh, you just got the answer. Open the windows. And you're all right. Blocks almost all the UV. Sometimes it lets UVA in, depends on the glass. And it blocks 40 to 60% of the red. So windows suck.
Next is Stephen. Number 1, am I right to assume that when one is interacting with the sun, one should remove prescription glasses where possible?
Yep.
Number 2, does Dr. Cruz believe that chronic pain conditions can be the result of past traumas that the mind is seeking distraction from, as per the work of Dr. John E. Sarno?
I think I've already answered that a little while ago.
Number 3, the research is developing for the action of ivermectin, fenbendazole, etc. Does this indicate that cancer has a parasitic cause, as some authors claim, or do these drugs have other protective roles?
Yeah, the drugs have other protective roles. Anybody that tells you that the parasites cause cancer, you should stop listening to them.
Okay, this is from Lorraine. Marcon's multi-antibiotic resistant congulase negative staphylococcus, you know what I'm saying, from Sears destroyed my gamma MSH to the point where I had undetectable levels. The physicians overseeing my case.
Let's do a hard stop here. This is exactly what I said a little while ago about the stress response. Okay. That when you have a shitty immune system, you get a bacteria like this, it destroys POMC, which is why the gamma MSH is down. I would be willing to bet you they probably never checked her alpha and beta, but her POMC is gone. So she's consistently blaming the Marcons, but no one's telling her immune system sucks because she's got no POMC. So what's the answer? Get your ass in the fucking sun. Why? Because most of your immune system, the number one place your immune system has cells is in the skin. There's 2 blogs in the last 2 months that have made this case. The current blog that I just released a couple days ago says it again. Okay? So you may not have read that while you ask this question, but you have to realize the skin has its own immune system. And it turns out, we're starting to find out that if you never fix the skin's immune system, you're much more likely to get chronic infections over and over and over again. But guess what? The functional medicine guys, the guys that this lady clearly saw, they don't read the literature because they don't know what I just told you.
Okay, number 2, how does cannabis, THC, CBC, CBG, CBN, and various terpenes in edible or tincture form affect melanin production, and what, if any, effect does it have on POMC and SCN?
I just said that a little while ago to an answer to another question, and that those things reduce the stress response, therefore they support POMC biology. I think the person that's done probably the best work, I did that endocannabinoid blog. I said earlier that I don't remember when it was, but I'm sure somebody will find it and put it in the chat before this is said and done. But I think you should read the work of Kevin McKiernan. Why? Because he's probably one of the world experts right now on the endocannabinoid system. He's sequencing all the genomes for those plants, and most of that information has been hidden from you because of big pharma, because they don't want you to know how you can modulate your immune system utilizing natural plants. The interesting thing that I've learned from Kevin, that he doesn't think smoking weed is the real answer. He thinks that CBD oil and tinctures are actually a better way of getting immune modulation. But I don't want to put words in his mouth. I would tell you, read his blogs on it, because I think he's extremely knowledgeable about this.
Okay, next is from Brandon. Treatment of tooth decay and missing teeth. I am new to the group and a general dentist. Are medical grade titanium implants detrimental to the health of the bone?
I would say in people with low redox, they can be. People who have good redox, no, you can put dental implants in and get away with it. But if you understand what Becker wrote in his book, putting a transition metal in a jawbone, whether it's titanium, zirconium, or anything else, is it's kind of like Intel saying, hey, I'm okay with putting aberrant atoms into my semiconductor fab, because we already know from Becker's work the bone is a semiconductor. So when you add, these two transition metals, and just so we're clear, because I know you're a new guy, I'm not assuming you read Becker's book, the two transition atoms that are important in bone are copper, not titanium, definitely not zirconium. So do these have aberrant effects even in healthy people? My answer is yes, they do. Now, the question the dentist and has to really sit down with the patient, how good or bad is their redox? If you go back and look at the redox blogs that I wrote, you'll notice that one of the redox measures, I think it was in Redox 1, is actually tooth pulp testing. So you can check someone's teeth, all 32 of them, and find out, hey, what's the pulp testing? If those numbers come in suboptimal, if you're a good dentist and you're not looking to rob people, you're probably not going to recommend that they have implants right away. In fact, what you may recommend is, hey, let's work on your redox. If we get it up and the tooth pulp testing gets better, then maybe we can put an implant in a year and a half, 2 years.
Okay. He also wants to know what your thoughts are on root canals. Even if done exquisitely well, is there going to be continuous inflammation?
I don't believe the nonsense that the functional medicine guys talk about. I also don't believe the nonsense in cavitations. I think these are all low redox people. Now, do I believe if you do a root canal in a low redox person that it's going to lead to a problem? Yep. Same thing that I just said about the implants. But remember, anybody who's got a root canal, say from normal cause, and when I say normal cause, I'm talking about eating too many carbohydrates and getting it from strep mutans, that is by definition a low redox person. Now, if this general dentist who's asking the question causes it with their high-speed drill, that's a different argument. Iatrogenic causes of pulp exposure, if it's in a healthy person, I would actually cover it with cement. And obviously you have to tell the patient that, hey, look, I did get a pulp exposure. We're not going to do a root canal. We're going to see how you respond. We're going to see if we can build dentin back up, da 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 da. But if they already have a yuck mouth, their perio pockets suck, they've got calculus on their teeth, they bleed when they brush, they bleed when they floss. I mean, I'll be honest with you, they probably don't floss if they're bleeding anyway. Then no, that's a person that I think you may have to consider, other alternatives. To me, this is all common sense. The problem is the reason it's not done is because root canals, crowns, post and cores, this is what I would call the gold mine of a general dentist practice. They can make quite a bit of money doing that. A lot of general dentists don't do endodontics unless it's a simple tooth. But they do like to do crowns, bridges, and post and cores because they're financially lucrative. So I always tell people incentives dictate outcomes. My opinion, my old specialty, oral surgery, also perio is doing these implants now. This has become the gold mine of dentistry. So this is the reason why everybody gets the full court press about, zirconium and titanium implants. I got to be honest with you, even when I was an oral surgeon, I was never convinced that these were always the best choices. Now, there are cases where I think they are really good choices. But do I feel that way for everybody? No, it's like anything else. The N=1 really matters.
Next is from Brian. Number 1, how do you think the Fabians and your Euro bankers are going to try and poison Bitcoin?
They're going to try to securitize it or financialize it. I just said that a little while ago in this Q&A, that Larry Fink asking for in-kind redemptions for Bitcoin, that I knew that was going to happen. It was going to come because that's a way for them to create a paper loss, and then they can do some kind of fucked up things with it. That's part of the reason why you don't want most of your wealth in paper Bitcoin. You know, that's like the ETFs. Nothing replaces Bitcoin. Just like I tell you, nothing replaces AM Sun or the sun in general. Same story.
Will it take a revolution by the people to get our America's Republic back?
I think I answered that earlier too. I told you right now, I'm less optimistic than I was a month or two ago. I actually think we need to start shooting at them.
Can Bitcoin potentially affect the system enough to cause the needed change, or will it be a part of or spark a revolution?
The answer is it depends. I would say the apathy of the American voter leads me to believe that it won't spark a revolution. Like if I had my tribe, I think we would spark a revolution. But the fact that these people rolled their sleeve up and took the jab and they're not pissed off. I made this case in the last several podcasts I did. I said on December 25th, 1776, George Washington went to go shoot at people with red coats and to kill British people for a 3% tax on tea. Let that sink in for a minute. Now these motherfuckers have actually injected people with LMPs, DNA plasmas, and SV40, and everybody is sitting down in New York and California, and they're like, oh, I'm worried about my house fire in the Palisades. They're fucking clueless. They have no idea. And you guys, when you hear this, you don't believe me. I want you to go listen to the Danny Jones, Callie Means, Jack Cruz podcast. What did I say to him right at the end? I said, you don't want to ban this shit. I said, but dude, you rolled your fucking sleeve up. I said, do you know what kind of risk? And I said, your mother died of an SV40 condition, and you want to talk about fucking food dyes? Let me just tell you something. This is the funny thing about this story. I think when people comply, it is part of their cognitive dissonance to not want to talk about the seriousness of this. I think the same thing is true with the question that was asked between the woman and the man about, hey, my partner took the jab and I didn't. I guarantee you that the answer I gave them, they're not going to like it all. They may not even talk about it. But I think this story about December 25th, 1776, and what just happened with Tony Fauci and these two idiots that were upstairs that me and Chantal got into it earlier. I'm like, dude, you just had people give preventative pardons, and America still doesn't fucking get how big a deal this is. They want to talk about some fucking fire.
Is electric conversation. Dr. Jack.
What is that? I don't know where that came from.
You got it muted.
Anyway, what I was saying is when you actually see that people aren't fired up for that, and you know, I even said to Chantel and these guys we were talking to, I said, this is the mindset of people that live in fucking Jersey and New York and California and Chicago. They don't think it's that big a deal. Like I said to this guy, I said, we just gave these pardons away. And he goes, well, I don't know. We'll see what the new justice system says. When somebody says that to you, you have to hit the delete button, because you know what? Don't waste your time on these people, because if you don't get it yet, you ain't going to get it. You're just not. And my position on Bitcoin, to answer the question, I think if it stays the way it is, let's say Bobby gets in and he gets fucked because he can't do the things he wants to do, because that's what I think is going to happen. I think Bitcoin will change the things Bobby would have changed in like 4 years, but it's going to take 25 to 50 years. Bitcoin will still fix it. It's just going to take a lot longer. Is Uncle Jack going to see the benefits? No, but I think Uncle Jack's kids and maybe their kids, some of you are young enough that you may experience it. But I think anybody who's probably over 50 years old, no, we're fucking toast. So what does that mean for the older members that are listening to this? Boomers have enough money. Start fucking, remember what I said before, start selling your house, start selling your gold, start doing all those things. You know, and I've heard some of my older members say, well, look, I don't have kids. I don't have this and I don't have that. I'm like, look, when you're dead, do you want to see a better world? It still matters that you need to do the right thing.
Mhm.
And boomers really piss me off about this. I'm like, you realize that all those 18 to 25-year-olds that went to Pearl Harbor, went to Europe and gave their fucking life up for the life you just lived, and you're gonna give me that fucking kind of bullshit? That's just bad thinking, as far as I'm concerned. I think if we want to build the world that we want, well, let's start fucking doing the right things towards building that world.
Mhm. Agreed with that one. Okay, Simone, I was born a black swan and have been looking for my family my whole life. I think I have finally found my tribe. How do I meet more of them? Well, we have all, you know,
You
we've
didn't
always,
come to the member meeting.
yeah, exactly. Reach out on the forum, you
Okay,
know.
what was our two new people that came that I gave huge kudos to at the member event? My buddy from Jersey and Tiffany. You know, I was very impressed that they were new members and they both felt like, if I'm not mistaken, I think Marshall, he actually told me in El Salvador, he goes, Jack, I signed up just to listen to your follow-up with the Danny Jones thing. He goes, I didn't give a shit about anything else.
Mhm.
And he goes, I just decided to come. And, you know, when he came, he actually, I think he was really impactful for the members that were there. Why? Because he's like a unicorn. He's an old fucker like I am. And
Mhm.
he's lived through all this bullshit. And he's like, no, this is fucking important. And Tiffany did the same thing. She's like, look, I don't know about all this stuff and this and that, but she YOLO'd in. She's like, I'm going to come down and I'm going to check this out and do it. Some people, I don't know what it is about the apathy angle. I don't know what it is about the cognitive dissonance thing. I happen to think that we all collectively lived through this shit show for the last 4 years, but it's very clear that it's had different effects on different people. And I think, I hate to say this, but I think the people that took the jab, they just want it to go away. And they don't really want to do anything about it. And I have to tell you, those are not my people. And yet I know I'm on a cruise ship right now in fucking huge waves going someplace to help these fuckers, you know? I'm like, I guess that's, you know, that's part of my pathology. Maybe I shouldn't give two shits about them either, but, and I'm writing blogs about this stuff. And am I madder than hell that they rolled their sleeves up? Because you know what? Their compliance fucking made this a lot worse. You want to know the truth? And I think those motherfuckers owe it to us to go out and really buy a ton of Bitcoin, because I do think Bitcoin is the answer for the tyranny that, you know, we all just went through.
Mhm.
Just so you know, that was a really poor job of avoiding the camera. rolling on the bed to take pictures because the waves are so big.
I saw you, Chantal.
The waves are in the port window. That's how high they are. And just so you know, they're actually as high as when we went through Drake's Passage. So it's fucking badass. Yeah. She's taking pictures. She goes, I'm going to send this to Christy. But she thought she was being really slick by rolling on the bed. I'm like, does she realize how stupid she looks?
I love you.
It's pretty hilarious. I'm like
I love,
watching her in the back. I'm going, oh, this is classic.
I love it. Where's my picture? I'm waiting.
Oh, yeah, remember, we're in the middle of the freaking ocean right now.
I know.
But it's pretty gnarly out there, I gotta tell you.
I'm
I got news.
surprised
There's
you're
a
still
lot of
on.
old people on this boat that are yakking tonight.
No, thank you. Okay, Simone has a third question. You actually answered her second with that answer. So, number 3 is she doesn't want to offend anybody in any way. I don't, but I do want to know why you, like me, when we are following all the protocols, why we are carrying extra weight. And I think you may have already answered that.
Well, I did answer it, but guess what? I didn't follow all the protocols. I went back 3.5 years ago to figure out what was really going on with COVID. So what did I do? I was effectively quit and went back into Chernobyl and did some other things. You know, I had to get data for guys like Kevin McKiernan to figure out, was SV40 really in it? And I worked for 14 days a month, staying up 24/7 for 3.5 straight years. And everybody kept saying to me, why the fuck are you doing this? Well, now hopefully some of you figured it out. Because if I didn't do that, you wouldn't know about the shit that we now know about. That's my answer.
Go. I got the picture, by the way. And that's crazy. I don't know how you're sitting there the way you are.
I got some wine.
There, there you go.
I'm
Okay.
inactivating my 8th nerve right now.
Yeah.
Although I've only taken one sip of it. It is
Okay.
pretty wild. The boat is rocking.
And yeah, you see those waves are huge. They're absolutely huge. Okay, so I'm going to go back up really quick and go to some of the live questions, the callers that didn't make it on the call, see if I can get Joanne. She was asking, can just being in sunshine heal the mental health of children?
Yeah, I think I answered that earlier
That one
as well.
too. Mm-hmm. Kendall, you've discussed the polyphenols in both a positive and negative light. What do you think of these in terms of importance in the human diet when they also can have the conflicting effect of binding to thiamine, for example? Also, their postbiotic effects with so-called longevity compounds such as urolithin A.
I mean, that's a lot of word salad. I think I've answered this question too. If your redox is low, what does the Solar Callus blog say? Read the story about Survivor Suit. That's what you do. You're adding those polyphenols in so that you can improve your solar redox fast. Now, let's say you have good solar redox, you're out in the sun. Do you need all those polyphenols? No, in fact, those polyphenols can lead to problems. Did the melanin renovation prescription tell you that ginger and turmeric may not be the smartest thing to use when you've got melanin? Correct. So I've answered the question, but again, I'm not getting on this member because it may be a new member and they may not know what's there. But I got news for you. That was answered a long time ago in the blogs.
Okay, next is from Morgan. I'm a physician with G6PD CBS mutations and have struggled with countless infections due to what I now know is low redox. I'm in Central America now and will be in El Salvador in a few weeks. I'm curious if Jack has any specific recommendations for G6PD and specifically how to improve my redox, my NAD levels, and is there any chance I can get the PP?
G6PD is not a problem. It's the CBS mutation that is, because that affects sulfation and detox pathways, especially with glutathione. So here she's got to be in the tropics. That's really what the issue is around that one. And remember, what's the other big issue with sulfation? I think in multiple blogs, the last one I'm thinking about is TENS gritty and the vitamin D blogs. What did I say the purpose of sulfation was? To actually make things water soluble. Well, guess what? If you have that deficit, you can't make things water soluble. That means that you can't actively turn or transform energy from one form to the other. So this is the reason why you need to really focus in on the environment. Again, G6PD with the CBS mutation, I put it in the same category as mental illness. I think you can fix it if you alter the environment. The problem is if you're a physician, You heard what I just said about me going back into Chernobyl. If you're a physician and you have to go back into Chernobyl, you may never fix this. This is one of the shitty things you find out, that when your job causes you a chronic issue, you have to make a decision. Is this worth it or not? And that's a decision, I got to be honest with you, that everybody has to make. I remember when I had to make the decision, did I really want to do it? No. Have you asked Chantel? Every time I went back and did trauma calls, I was miserable. Absolutely fucking miserable. But why did I do it? Because I thought it was worth it. Not that it was worth it for me. It certainly wasn't worth it for me. But it's something I felt that had to be done.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, Jackson had asked, as someone with floaters and other visual phenomenon, would I be wearing blue light glasses 24/7 on screens and artificial lighting?
I mean, if you're around shitty light, your anterior chamber of your eye is getting toasted. It's got a decreased electric current, which is the cause of floaters. So yeah, if you're putting your eyes in the wrong light, isn't this the same story I just told you? What, at least 3 or 4 other different times?
Mm-hmm.
But your smart move is don't do that. Get in the sun and the floaters will go away. It's a function of the DC electric current, your anterior chamber of your eye, your vitreous, the sclera, the lens, the skeletal muscles, everything in the anterior chamber of your eye. You can Google it, look it up. When the redox in that area is low, you're going to get floaters. You're going to get glaucoma. You're going to get myopia. You're going to get a whole bunch of eye diseases that are out there. But you can fix them all. Is it very much like mental illness? I believe it is. Do I believe eye findings happen before the real disease occurs? I told you that about my own disease. Choroid level in in the retina of the eye leads to childhood obesity. That paper has been out for a long period of time. I remember when I first read it, I couldn't believe it. I even talked about that in the Vermont 2017 talk and showed the picture. People still are stunned that, yeah, we have the answer for childhood obesity, but nobody fucking wants to hear it. It's that simple. Just take these kids and put them fucking outside.
Okay, Eric, in the last podcast with Breedlove, Dr. Jack mentioned cystic fibrosis as a true genetic disorder. I'm curious what his thoughts are on this diagnosis and what measures can be considered. This may be too much of a question for the webinar.
Oh, it's a perfect question. You know why? Because it must be another young member. Because guess what? There's a blog. Jeremy spoke at class today. How about you read that? Because it answers the question 100%. And it's on the old Jack Cruz site. It's not on Patreon. It's been sitting there. Read it. It's an epic blog.
Okay, let's see. Curious what Jack thinks of Rife machines and Rife treatment as part of the overall health components.
I feel about Rife machines the same way I feel about Spurdy Ds and red light panels. They might help you, but why the fuck are you wasting your money on stuff not the sun?
Okay. Okay, those are all the questions, but the ones that were not approved. Did you want me to go through those, or you want me to send emails to these?
You can read some of them to me and I'll tell you very quickly.
Okay. The first one is, these two were in a question. Richard, I got some questions that I would like to explore with you regarding my sleep area.
Yeah, we can answer some questions.
Regarding okay. Regarding my sleep area, I was wondering how dark is dark. When I lay in bed, I cannot see any light at all.
Come on. This guy's not a new member. When you ask this is the reason why I went fucking nuclear and didn't want to answer this question. I have said multiple times, your retina, it's in the Vermont talks, it's in fucking blogs. You're sensitive to 5 photons. How dark is dark? That's fucking how dark it's supposed to be. No fucking light. Got it? And dude, that is, and I'm beating you up now. It was such a bad fucking question because you outed yourself. And to ask that question, I'm just like, bro, you must be just watching Twitter and small little feeds. I've even got this on the bottom of slides. that say this in multiple blogs.
Okay. Do you want me to go through any more of his questions? I think a lot of them are on the blogs. There is one that he's asking, I'll ask, is do you know anyone in El Salvador that can do a peripheral blood smear?
I'm sure we could find somebody to do it. It's not that difficult to do.
Okay.
I mean, I would say this guy probably needs to hire Jeremy. But Jeremy can do it. In fact, Jeremy's sister may be able to do it. She's a doctor, but she's centralized as fuck. Jeremy actually tried to convince me at Christmas time to go visit her in Guatemala. And I said, fuck that. I'm going to South America. I don't want to go talk to a doctor who's centralized as fuck. But I
Yeah.
guarantee you that she probably knows somebody in this area that probably could do it. He just has to hire Jeremy to ask that question.
Let's see. Christine. Hi, Dr. Cruz. I wanted to ask your thoughts on breast cancer protocol received from Dr. Makis. 1 to 1.5 milligrams kilograms per day of ivermectin, 1,000 milligrams a day of mebendazole, lactoferrin, CBD oil, and high-dose melatonin. It also contains a lot of other bioactive compounds and
I already
supplements.
know about all that. Did she take the jab or not?
Let's see. Currently, another doctor.
She took the jab. She can do that. If she didn't take the jab, she needs to get her tits in the sun. Simple as that.
Okay.
But if she took the jab, yeah, she's got to do the full Monty.
Okay. Kita, number one, I have a financially successful friend who often talks about how he got really sunburned at a summer road construction job in college. I think it was that sun exposure that elevated his thinking and business acumen. Though now that's his reason for using lots of sunscreen, do you think that kind of experience could propel people into success or greatness?
No. In fact, this question has, I know I didn't want to answer it, has no face validity. She's saying, oh, this guy was successful because he got sunburn. Then he's like, oh, but he uses sunscreen. So that means he's a moron. Okay. And most successful people become successful not because they're smart, because they're usually morons. If you've been around enough rich people, you'll figure that out. I can tell you, I've been around a lot of rich people. Most of them are morons. So the interesting thing with this, usually it's opportunity, and these people take the opportunity. They take huge risks and it pays off for them. That's usually what happens. So no, I would totally disagree with that. And then the second thing is, I think the person understands this, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you Google my name and sunburns, there's multiple places out there where I have said sunburns don't matter. So if you put sunburns don't matter and my name in a Google box, I think you'll get really my hot take, because sunburns don't matter. This is something I'm vehement about. I know it's so anti-dermatology, so anti-ophthalmology, so anti-centralized advice, but remember, you guys pay me to tell you the truth, not to fucking lie to you. And I am not scared of sunburns at all.
And number two from Kita, if so or not, are there any other childhood or teenage events or practices that would give people a mental edge in adulthood? In part one with Breed Love, you mentioned freezing your head between some subway cars, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that was just something I did. I actually ignored my mother because I thought my mother was a dingleberry. So I was going to get sick by doing that. And I'm like, I said, Mom, have you ever fucking seen the wolves in Yellowstone Park? Do they have fucking hats on their head? You know, and when you say stuff like that to your parents, of course they get pissed at you because they're like, why are you back talking me? I'm like, I'm back talking because you're a fucking idiot. You know, here's nature that's on the goddamn TV. You're looking at it every day. And you're going to sit here and tell me I need to wear a jacket and a hat? And, you know, when I said it to her, she couldn't argue with me. And see, that's the problem with people who are smart. They point out the lack of first principle thinking to dumbasses. And people don't realize that, you know, some people don't like to fact check dumbasses. I have to tell you, I love it. I really do. Because it points out to them, how much more bullshit do you believe? That's really hindering you. It happened today on the boat with these guys from New York. Like, it's just amazing to me that they're okay with these pardons, and they like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. Like, Christy, I don't know how you feel about this, but when Trump went out and met Brad Sherman, he met all the fucking idiots in California about the fires out there, and he just had this little simple sit down with them, and he basically told them all, you're fucking idiots. Like, he even said to them, the Sierra Nevadas, the water's going, you have no water in your fucking fire hydrants. 77% of the water is going out in the Pacific Ocean. Why'd that happen? Because your fucking stupid policies in California. You're worried about some fucking fox or some snail or this and that. Jesus Christ, is the snail or the fox paying your taxes? No. It's just that's the kind of stuff that just irks me. And remember, government is supposed to, serve the people. When the government doesn't serve the people, what does our Constitution say? We can shoot them. And we should. I think everybody in California should shoot Gavin Newsom. And that fucking mayor. Holy shit. Talk about dumbass.
Oh, yeah.
I know this is going to rub people the wrong way, because people don't like when I get this fired up and I start shooting my mouth off, but it's the truth. I'm very frustrated that more people don't really understand this SV40 issue, the lipid nanoparticles, the TNA plasmids, the issues with deuterium, the implications for people who did this, and what the collateral effects are going to be of this for the next. I mean, if you really want to know, everybody that took the jab, they're guaranteeing that you're going to pay higher taxes. So just think about, you, Christy, or say Marshall, or I don't know who lives in Chicago anymore. But if you live in those places, you are guaranteed to have to pay higher taxes the rest of your life to take care of retards. And when I think about what Trump's doing about removing the illegal aliens, it's very similar to the argument about people who complied with the jabs. When you have a lot of illegal aliens in and around where you live, it raises the cost of living in those areas. That means it's going to drive inflation higher. That means you actually need to own more Bitcoin. Like, if you live in California, New Jersey, or Connecticut, Orange County, Chicago, you need more Bitcoin. You actually do. And to me, the smarter decision, if you can't do that, fucking move. I can't tell you. There was a couple of people I did consults on this week, and I told them, you got to move. And they're like, well, I can't move. I'm like, dude, you live in the place that costs the most money to live in, and you're telling me you can't move? If you fucking move anywhere, you're going to save money. Oh, well, my grandmother, my mother, I'm like, I just want to hit the leave button from the consult. They don't get it. And how are you going to fix that? I can't fix that. I can't. And all it does is get me frustrated. And then, they say, oh, Jack's such an asshole. But I'm telling them the truth. They don't want to hear the truth. They want to hear what they want to hear, and they want to know how they can stay next to their mother or grandmother and deal with, the Venezuelan gangs. I ain't got that answer.
Can't fix other people's problems. All right. David Lamb has a question. Can Jack clarify why he prefers that a short wheelbase two-seater over the long wheelbase convertible Jeep? I'm sure the older members recall him saying longer wheelbase better than the magnetic fields from the tires.
Yeah, that's true. And I think the smaller the tires, the better is because of the steel belts. But I think the other thing is, the older the car, the less EMF that's in it. That's another effect as well. So I think ultimately you got to look at all those things. I like the effect of convertibles to offset a lot of the EMF in a car, but I also understand that a convertible, for the same argument I just made, is more expensive to keep. It's got higher insurance, probably more upkeep, things like that. Now, that's not true for me in El Salvador. Why? Because I don't have any insurance. How do you like that? I live in a place where I don't have to have insurance. And the upkeep is really cheap because Jeremy's best friend is Jeremiah, and fucking Jeremiah is the man. He can fix anything and he can do it cheaply. If I told Christy or Marshall to go, fix a convertible somewhere in New Jersey or California, they'd come back and say, fuck, I got to spend Bitcoin to do this. So, I would tell them, then you don't want to own that kind of car, in a place like that. That's one of those interesting things about N=1s on zip codes. There's a lot of different factors that you don't think about until you go to a place. And I will tell you, one of my defects is I like cars. I got out of that defect, but I hate to say it. When I moved to El Salvador, I said, no, fuck it. I'm getting me some nice cars. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. And I got news for you. I'm gonna buy another one pretty soon, and I know that I want a different convertible than the one I got. So anybody's out there who decides they want to buy my convertible, it's a great EMF car to buy. But see, Chantal's already back there. No, because she knows what I want to buy and she knows what it's going to cost. But I'm going to get it eventually somewhere down the road. It may not happen anytime soon, but I love driving that convertible on those volcanic roads and stuff. It's just so much fun.
Mm-hmm. You have to have fun.
I like the top down. You get good sun. Every time I go to the Bitcoin farmers market, I drive all the way down there with the top down, and it's huge, huge solar exposure.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to see that Pacific Ocean while you're coming down. It's just spectacular. But David brings up a good point. But see, I can't let David off the hook because David is also addicted to cars. So he's trying to fucking step on my toes doing this publicly. I know what he's doing. Trust me.
That's funny. Okay, next is from B. Hello, Dr. Cruz. Recently, I had 2 cases that had calcium index scores tests come in with an incidental finding of hypodensities in the liver. They had an MRI with contrast and cysts were found in the liver. How big of a problem can this be?
Could be huge.
Last November, I had a 32-year-old mother of 4 after twins on second pregnancy became hypothyroid. She could never eat broccoli until she tried small dose of molybdenum. November, she noted eye and face twitching. Then a couple of weeks later, had a migraine for weeks. Was given infusions, got worse, lost speech, went to ER. Lab showed low B12, shots of methyl B12 stop migraine, switched to oral hydroxy B12, feels better. 23andMe shows homozygosis for VDR TAC, MTRR, CBS, SOD, and the 2 NAT2s.
That was
I know
exactly what I said about the doctor that you asked me about a little while ago. This is a person who's fucking a redox train wreck. That's the key. She needs to live in a way better environment. She's got all those, SNP and SAP problems. Dude, she's got no business living in shit environments. Unfortunately, this is when you do find out that I don't want to say this is her genetic code, but for want of a better term, her genetic code mandates that she needs a better zip code.
Another one from B. Lastly, one of my dear friends just had a baby born with hypospadias. She has a spadias. She has a history of shift work for an ad company that makes advertising material with acrylics on site. 2 years before conception, I got her on second shift. At home and on her break, she is a Nazi about light and eats for the seasons. Could the exposure to the acrylics at her work played a role in the birth defect, or more likely the history?
Yeah, I think the history is a bigger role. Why? Because of I don't know if I put it on the form or not, but I put it in a tweet a couple of days ago. There was a paper that just came out that showed the effect of light on the sex steroid clocks is off the chain. I think I did. I did put it on the form. You know where it is? So in the female quantum biology thing, and I talked about PCOS, so people can look it up there. That hypospadias question is directly tied to that. So if you go in the female quantum biology section, look that up, you'll find it. I think I put down the effect of low T and PCOS, so I think you'll find it there.
Okay.
All right, I'm ending this. I'm done with you.
Okay.
And I answered even extra questions than I thought.
Okay,
But we
perfect.
passed. It was good.
And
This
I'll
other,
email
the
I'll
other,
need
the
the
other, the other guy that was in the thing that wanted to talk to me about, what's his name? His name is Munkin. I saw he posted something in the chat.
yes.
Dude, I don't believe anything about labs. If you're gonna do a consult, the smartest first thing you do is just do a half-hour consult in the beginning. Tell me what your N=1 is, and I'll tell you what to order. If you're even smarter, you can save the money on the consult, do it in a optimal journal, and then you can figure out whether you need labs or not. Anybody who's done a consult with me will tell you. I think labs are useless if you haven't done any testing in your environment. Labs have a place, but I'll tell you what the place is once I know what's going on with you. So, no, I don't think doing the labs right off the bat is absolutely mandatory. I think what's more mandatory is hearing the story, knowing about your mitochondrial heritage from grandma and mommy, and knowing about where you live. I'm always amazed when people send me these fucking narratives and they never tell me where they live. I have to wait to talk to them and then find out, oh, here you go. Here's your problem. You know, but they casually leave that out. And I think they do it on purpose because they don't want to hear what I'm going to tell them. But, it's important. But I just think too many people waste much money on labs. And I think that's because you've been conditioned by the allopathic and functional medicine doctors. You don't need labs right off the bat. You need to really document your story. Your history is really important. Your mitochondrial history is important. And, where you live, the environmental hack, all that stuff is huge. All right, with that, we'll see how it goes. We'll do the next Q&A probably after I get back from Suriname. I'm not getting back until like the middle of the month. So figure whatever the first middle of the month is in February. I don't even know what it is.
Yeah, we'll reach out.
It'll be somewhere there. All right.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, everyone. Recording will be up on your dashboard in the next 24 hours. Appreciate all of you for attending. Thank you. Good luck, Jack. Hold on tight.
Yeah, exactly. Ripping my pillow tight.
Exactly.